least we put this matter to bed. That's what she said. Or he said.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. I did. Okay. You have no idea the physical toll the 3 vasectomies have on a person.
Computers don't make errors. What they do on purpose. By now, your name and particulars have been fed into every laptop, desktop, mainframe, and supermarket scanner that collectively make up the global information conspiracy, otherwise known as the Beast.
To start with about shipping, because I know a lot of fans were actually pretty invested in the idea of Natasha with actually either or both of you guys, and now obviously she's with Bruce. What do you guys make of that?
She's a slut.
I was gonna say something along that line.
Complete horror.
Trick, man.
I guess I'm here to send out the bat signal.
A bat signal, for listeners who might not know, refers to the children's character, the Bat Man, a strong gentleman who fights crime nocturnally.
That's correct. Well put.
What's going on, everyone? It's Nina Infinity. Welcome to my channel on this Wednesday, and this is it's just a chill stream. It's not a really it's not a named show. So welcome one and all to this stream. Thank you for being here. We've got amazing guests on tonight. We have the one and only Script Doctor in the house. What's up, Script Doctor?
Oh, hey, yes, happy to be here this evening.
Hey.
Nice to hang out. Good to see Dante again, and of course you, my sister from another mister.
Yes, I'm so happy to see you. It's been a long time. I feel like it's been forever. Have we even hung out this year? Like
Briefly for your birthday stream, and then I got yanked away back at work.
Okay, so we did hang out. But we haven't hung out, Dante. So welcome to happy 2025. Is it too late to say that? I feel like it's like way too late.
No, I think you can do 3 months in. 3 months in is still a happy 2025, I think.
Okay, great. I think that's been a
I don't make the
conversation
rules.
before. Like, yeah, I know. I think that's been a conversation before. It's like, how long can you say that? That was a Seinfeld joke, actually. Like she was like, I got Happy New Year today, and it was like in May or something. And she's like, don't Happy New Year me in May.
Yeah, May's too long.
Yeah, May's too long. But I'm so glad you're here. Script Doctor, did you see Captain America?
No, not yet. I might be able to squeeze in some time to see it this weekend, but as of yet, no. I have been getting barraged with some various texts and DM about the movie.
Okay.
It's been a mixed bag across the board from what I've been reading, so we'll see.
Yeah, because that's why I'm so glad Dante's here, because he's actually seen the movie. So I'm like really glad that you're here and you can spoil it for the audience a little bit, maybe possibly. I don't even know if we want to go spoiler or like spoiler free or whatever, but it's just okay. So I have lost complete faith in the MCU. I'm not like quite into it like the way I am with Star Wars, where I'm like, I'm done with Star Wars. Like Disney Star Wars is done for me. I'm never watching anything Star Wars again. But I'm just kind of like, like I don't care. Like apathy is like completely set in for me for the MCU, especially after I think it was Multiverse of Madness that did it for me. I was just like, okay, this is done. Because I gave WandaVision a chance and I was really excited. And then I gave like a couple more shows a chance, including Captain, like the what is it? The woke
Falcon
soldier
and the
one.
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, that one, the woke soldier. I was like, what the fuck is this? So like after I watched that show, I was like, okay, this is getting it's going off the rails for me. So let's start with that. Let's start with Captain America. You saw it. What did you think of this movie?
Yeah, I saw it, and last night with Chris Gore, and oh man, it's a whole bag of nuts. I got to tell you, it's I honestly thought for sure I was going to go into it at least a little lit, a little drink or some gummies or something. Nope, I raw dogged that movie, and and watched it.
You stayed awake. You stayed awake the whole time.
You know what? I did stay awake because I will say this. Look, and I'm going to be very fair. it wasn't bad enough to where I wanted to walk out. It wasn't bad enough to where, I was falling asleep. It kept my interest, and I say that very loosely. But this movie had nothing but problems. It had just a bag of problems, and it was rough getting through it. I will say that there were some scenes that some of the CGI was the worst. That was the worst.
I saw one of the fight scenes. They they leaked some of the scenes, right? So one of the scenes I saw like a little sneak peek, and it looked awful. Like I was like, who's choreographing these fight scenes? Because they look really bad. And you kind of compare it to like, Captain America, for example, Civil War, even like the scene with Captain America, the real Captain America, Steve Rogers, fighting Iron Man, and that scene is so like, oh my god, it's just you're in it. You're like, oh my god, let's go. So when I was seeing Anthony Mackie fight, first of all, it seemed like an MCU show. Like the scene was kind of cheap. Like I was like, this doesn't look like a multi-million-dollar budget movie. It looks kind of cheap. So is that how it came off to you as well in the movie?
Oh yeah, like there
with context added.
There were times where I literally thought like this could have just been a season finale to The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I mean that was the quality that we were looking at. I'll say tonally, it did feel a lot more like a sequel to Edward Norton's The Incredible Hulk than it did a sequel to Captain America, because Liv Tyler was back as Betty Ross. They were showing clips of Ed Norton's Hulk fighting the Abomination. It was literally almost a continuation of that movie, but done a lot less clever. And
okay.
It was, and that's what I'm saying. There were some interesting aspects of the film that they really could have, got into. But I think after 4 reshoots, this is all they could salvage.
I was gonna actually bring that up. How can you tell how choppy it is because of the reshoots?
Oh god, you can almost even see where they went back and reshot some things like that. That's how obvious it was and how bad it was. The one good thing I will say about this film though is I feel like acting wise, it was decent. The acting was good. Like even Harrison Ford, who I thought for sure was going to phone it in, he actually he performed. He acted. I was like, okay. He didn't just phone it in.
That's
so
good.
Well, no, that
I'm
was
happy
good
to hear that.
It's been a while since I've seen Harrison Ford act.
Did you see the new Indiana Jones?
Oh god, yeah, that was bad.
Because I cut that off after like 20 minutes. So
was
he better? Was he better in this than he was in Indy?
Well, you know what it is. It almost felt like at least in this film, it felt like he wanted to be there.
He wanted to be good.
That's what it felt like. It felt like he wanted to be in this film. Like he,
he actually cared about it.
I didn't get that from Indiana Jones at all. But no, he did a decent job, and I think everyone did a decent job of acting. I just think that they didn't have anything to work with. The script was chopped to hell, and I think they did the best with what they could, considering this was not the movie they started out with. And it's funny because me and Chris kind of disagree with this one particular thing where I honestly don't think this movie is really woke. Like it's not really that woke at all. I mean, there are some scenes where Sam, talks about the struggle of having to live up and blah, 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 but he doesn't take it too far to where you're like, oh, here we go.
So he didn't give like that same speech, like when you remember at the end of Winter Soldier.
Exactly.
Like,
so not to that extent. And I think what happened was in previous versions before the ones they reshot, it was a lot more woke, like a lot more. And so they cut those scenes out. And I think they cut them out because they saw which way the tide was turning politically and socially in the country. And they were like, you know what, maybe we should kind of ease up on this stuff right now. And they cut it out.
Just like what they did with the Marvels, they cut out a ton of stuff that was most likely deemed to be woke or definitely divisive to the audience.
Yeah.
How do you guys think it's going to do in the box office?
Honestly, that if you were to ask me that before I saw the movie, I'd say, oh, it's going to tank. After seeing it, I don't think it's bad enough that it's going to tank, but it's not going to do great. You know what I mean? Like, I think at best, and this is like being really optimistic, at best, it's going to break even at
Okay,
best.
well, hang on. That's a good point that you're bringing up because okay, let's say you're saying break even. I don't even know what the break even number is at this point because of how many reshoots and stuff like that had they
Yeah.
done, including the marketing and everything. So, Script Doctor, do you have any type of idea about the numbers?
Well, the scuttlebutt is that, well, first of all, the marketing that they've done was spent and utilized last year. So there's no new marketing of that. With the reshoots themselves, what I have heard is that they pinched every penny they could on the reshoots themselves. So now I think because there's technically 2 LLCs for this Captain America 4, I think the reported budget of 180 is probably true with regards to Brave New World. And I think anything that they ended up scrapping, they have basically used Hollywood accounting to put under the LLC of New World Order, which is what originally Captain America 4 was. So that debt that has been incurred for, say, New World Order will be used against any profits Disney makes this year on their theatrical releases, so that they basically don't have to pay as much in taxes when they do the end of year when they do their quarterly reportings and whatnot. So it's not a great method to do that, but I would suggest that if this movie were to surpass, say, $400 million worldwide, that'll probably be the break-even point, not including the New World Order budget that was spent prior. So you factor that out, Disney will then brag and boast on their earnings call saying, yeah, we made money off of Brave New World, and completely avoid any questions about, well, wasn't it originally called New World Order? And I know that was an LLC registered, and what happened to that? and
Yeah,
what happened to that money?
What did happen to that?
It's weird, but it's not the most. I mean, it's a practice that Hollywood has used before. I mean, I think they also used it technically with The Exorcist, because they shot 2 movies at once, but they also released 2 versions of like part 4 or part 5 or whatever. The one with Paul Rudd, I can't remember. But they're able to squirrel it away that way, and it's
oh my God!
dubious,
For a
but it's not
second, when you said
necessarily
Paul
illegal.
Rudd, I was like, I totally forgot that there's a remake of Exorcist because I haven't seen the remake, so I was like, the fuck are you talking
I
about? Like
think it's in
Paul
like the
Rudd?
mid or late 90s or something like that. I can't remember. I lost focus of a lot of those Exorcist sequels pretty quickly when it.
And funny enough, Paul Rudd was mentioned quite a bit in the movie last night. So
Yeah.
Oh, was he?
Well, Ant-Man is
Ant-Man, right?
Yeah.
How is Ant-Man doing? Like, was he in it? How are the cameos? Was there any cameos?
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil them in case people
Oh.
do want to go watch it. I mean, I could, but
Okay, but there was cameos.
yeah, there
Okay.
were a couple. So and they were cool. They were cool when it happened. I will say that there is a very, very underwhelming after credits scene. That guys, if you got to go to the bathroom, if you want to just skip the after credits, do it. Like don't sit through all those names, because the after credit is not worth it at all. Just
Is it a single after credit, or is it like 2, like,
no,
main credit?
there's one at the very end. At the very end, that's it.
Probably the one I've heard about, which means
yeah,
nothing.
it was completely underwhelming.
I want to know because I'm not planning on watching this movie. But
Okay, no, I'll just tell you. I mean,
no. Wait. If you don't want to know, audience, plug your ears until I give you the thumbs up. Okay. People are saying spoil it. Okay, we're gonna spoil it right now. 3, 2, 1, go, Dante.
Okay, so basically the real villain of the film, which is this character called the Leader. He's actually a Hulk villain in a comic. He's in a cell because he's in the raft where they kept the other Avengers when they did the Civil War. He's in the raft. Sam walks past his cell and is talking to him, and he's basically telling him, "Hey, your plan didn't work. We got you." That kind of thing. And the Leader is saying, "Yeah, you do got me, but what you don't understand is, you don't see the bigger picture. There's something coming. There's something bigger coming. There's other worlds." And he ends it with, "They are coming." So I guess they were trying to set up Doomsday or Secret Wars or something, and that was it. That was the end, and it was just like, dude, that was stupid.
That was lame. Okay,
It was lame. It was dumb. It was
before I give people the thumbs up because we're in the spoiler zone. Does the actual Captain America make a cameo?
Oh no.
Oh
no. Steve Rogers is not in this film.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? That's the only way that I would have been like, I'm watching this movie is if somehow they brought back Steve Rogers. But no, yeah, very underwhelming spoiler indeed. Okay, people, we're done with the spoilers.
Well, I mean, you know, he's spending time with his grandkids. That's what he's doing. That's why he gave Sam the shield.
Well, you know what? I said this yesterday. I think Anthony Mackie, he makes I bought him as a superhero. I don't buy him as Captain America.
I bought him as freaking Falcon.
Yes,
like,
he
I
was fine as
liked
Falcon.
him as Falcon. He was great as Falcon. And then it's like, I guess I'm one of those people that wanted Bucky to get the shield, and
Which would have made more sense.
It was set up that way, and then all of a sudden it's like, nah, no, but Bucky's not going to be the one.
And they really tried to like soup up the, you know, what Sam could do, you know, because he doesn't have the serum inside of him. So they give him, you know, this Wakandan suit from Wakanda, and that's how he's able to absorb the punches from the Hulk.
That makes sense. I was wondering about that because I was like, how is he taking all these punches and stuff from the Hulk? Like, that mean, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and even then it doesn't make a lot of sense, but yeah.
And then there was another thing. I mean, that it just dropped. I didn't actually watch the trailer for it, but it was like, what is it? I was gonna call it the Thundercats.
Thunderbolts, yeah.
With
Thunderbolts. I'm trying to look up the because I tweeted about it the other day. I'm trying to find the picture of the poster that looks like the Wheaties box.
Oh yeah, because it's a joke in the film.
Yeah, they use that in the
is that
trailer.
what it is?
Red Guardian is going to be the comic relief. Yeah.
But also the heart of the film, you know.
But see, that was one of the things that really pissed me off about this movie also, was that because originally they were like, oh, we're going to make Bucky the leader and blah, blah, blah. And then now it's like, why is she up front? Like, I don't understand. Shouldn't it be Bucky then? Like,
yeah, because they can't help themselves.
Yeah.
They can't help themselves. But I will say this. So I do have a source and that works for the MCU. And so he always gives me the lowdown before everything happens. And he said he's the one who told me about Brave New World and what to expect and how things are going to happen. He did tell me this though about the Thunderbolts. He said it's actually surprisingly fun. It's going to be a fun action movie that people are going to like. It doesn't have a lot of the hangups as some of the other MCU films because it doesn't take itself that serious, but the action is on point. So I was like, okay,
all right. I like fun.
Yeah,
I miss
fun. Is fine.
Fun is good. I'm into that. Real quick, let me get this super chat here from Beep Bop Boop for $1.99. Says this movie had 5 credited writers. Not this movie. He's talking about Captain America. Red flag. Right script. This is for you, script.
Can be. I mean, the way that I remember this going is that Rob Edwards was the original screenwriter, and he was working with Malcolm Spellman and Dallin Mousson. And then I guess at some point, whatever Rob turned in, Malcolm and Dallin decided that they're going to rewrite that. And then I guess later on, they brought in Julius Ona and Peter Glanz to rewrite them. So you've got 2 writing pairs and a single writer, and 3 of them had been rewritten by the last 2. And that's usually a mess of a thing that you don't want. We're probably going to be seeing a little less of that to a degree because current WGA contracts basically say that if you write a screenplay and they want to do rewrites, they have to give you the first chance to rewrite it. And so that mitigates the amount of how many people will be brought on board. However, it's not always a red flag because you take a look at, say, the very first Pirates of the Caribbean film, which also Disney, that script, I think, was done by like 7 or 8 people. And that was a hit. So it really just depends on how that goes. So yeah, there's current day Disney, that'd be a red flag. Other studios, it really all depends on the final product and also the pedigree of the writers. Like these guys here, they've been around for a little bit, and some of them have some chops. Some of them are just good, script doctors. not as good as myself personally, but they know the right people, so they get those jobs. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I will say, like, just with what's been happening in the world over the last, I would say 4 or 5 weeks, when you go back and you listen to that really arrogant speech that Sam did at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you could tweak that just slightly, and it actually have a lot of more gravity for today. Because what do you see in politics? Well, you see an exposure of the government or bureaucracies under the government's purview doing a terrible job, squandering resources and hurting stuff. And it's basically like, yeah, you need to do better. But the thing is that even though in that original speech is orbiting it, it's done so under the politic of these terrorist groups are in the right and you oligarchs within government are in the wrong. But that's not how it is. It's supposed to be both parties are in the wrong. You're two enemies fighting each other, and we, the American people, are the victims here. And it's not the whole you need to do better. It's like we as a country need to do better by getting rid of you from office and by holding the people that are bad account. Like that's the Captain America speech, because his loyalty is to the country, not to whoever's in office. Like he'll respect them, but it's basically like the moment, even if the president, whether it's someone you like or someone you hate, if they violate the Constitution or they violate the oath of office, Captain America is not going to acquiesce to them.
That was the whole point of Civil War.
Exactly.
Like it was, that he didn't want what happened there to be the staple, what America was about. He was like, that's not what I'm about.
Right.
So
and because they lost that with Sam, we kind of lose a big portion of Sam, which is like, we never got that moment where we could understand why Steve Rogers chose Sam to carry the shield now that Steve Rogers has aged out of the ability to be Captain America. Where is that pivotal moment where you're like, oh, here's Sam Wilson standing up for what he believes in, and we see that it's very recognizable to the morals that Steve Rogers has, which now says, oh, now we better understand their friendship as opposed to just two guys that were running around the Capitol and became friends that way.
Racing each other, yeah.
So
it's weird because Script Doctor, like what you're talking about is old school storytelling, right? Like because this is what we've always kind of grown up with, is like messaging in movies and TV shows and stuff like that is not necessarily a bad thing. It's like it's just how you go about bringing that message out and telling people and communicating that story to people is what really kind of makes something good and successful, right? Whereas lately people just have been preached to. It's like, don't do this, like that. You just feel like you're going to your mom's house and you're just like, don't.
Yeah, the art of what that message is lost in the ether, because take a look at this famous movie called The Crucible, based off the play by Arthur Miller. It's basically the message of that is witch hunts are bad. Witch hunts are bad. Then you take a look at, say, Star Trek: The Next Generation, the drumhead. What is the message of that? Witch hunts are bad. That's it. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's not up to you as the audience to make a decision. Well, are witch hunts bad? No. The show is telling you it's bad, but it's telling you based on the fact of how you get succumb to it and what are the consequences of that action, as to frame it as to why it is bad. And that's usually what you do. If you have an idea or you have a message, you steel man both parties and sides, and then you show the consequences of those actions so that you, as an audience member, can be educated with what that entails. And that also helps you understand and recognize those patterns so that in your actual life, you can point to and be like, oh, wait a minute, I see what they're doing here. They're forming a witch hunt against this person. And they're using conjecture and hyperbole and ad hominem and all these things to manipulate me to hate them. And I can either fall for it or I can scrutinize it and see what's actually going on here. And maybe it is a person that's committed a crime, and maybe it's being embellished or not. Maybe they haven't committed a crime at all, but the stuff that they're doing is dangerous to other people who have more on the line to lose. That's what good storytelling does. And the fact of the matter is that there's always politics in story, but when the politics become propaganda, that is when you've lost the art of it.
Yes.
So that's what you have to remember, is like, you don't want propaganda, but you're perfectly fine to have politics. Because once you start preaching it, that's when it becomes propaganda.
That is when it becomes propaganda. And I mean, to keep in line with the MCU conversation, like the next one I think is Thunderbolt, and then the one after that is going to be, I guess, Fantastic Four.
Yes.
Did
Yeah.
you guys see the trailer for the Fantastic Four?
Yeah.
How did you feel about it, Dante? What did you think about Fantastic Four?
I'll be honest, I liked it. You know what? For me, it felt very, very Jack Kirby, which I felt like that's been missing from every Fantastic Four movie that's ever been made, is that feeling of Kirby. And it felt like, and we talk about this stuff a lot as far as tone, right? The best tone for any kind of Fantastic Four movie is for it to take place in the 60s or in that era. It works better in that era. It feels like they fit in that era. And the fact that they're going with this, retro futuristic look and feel, I really just dug everything about that trailer. The two things I didn't like, and I guess they're big things, are number one, the Thing's voice. I'm not feeling it. It needs to be a lot more deeper, a lot more gravelly. But I can look past that more than I can look past the fact that I despise the fact that they casted Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. Pedro Pascal is not Reed Richards. He's just not. He's in any kind of way, he's not. And they had so many better actors they could have chose. They could have chose Zachary Levi. They could have chose a bunch of other actors that would have been great for Reed Richards. And Disney went to their go-to boy, who is Pedro Pascal,
who was in 5 movies last year. 5 last year, 5, and then the year before that, I think 3, and the year before that, he was in 3 as well. 4. Sorry, because he was 3, and then Book of Boba Fett, because Mandalorian was like, the guy is getting a lot of work, and I don't begrudge him for it. But the fact of the matter is, he's like the go-to guy for the tentpole film.
Yeah, and the problem is that he plays Pedro Pascal in every film.
Yeah, he does.
Except
I'm
when he's
so
opposite
over
Nick
him.
Cage, because Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Pedro was actually very
Oh
different.
yeah, well that was funny. That was funny.
Great. That's the movies you want to see Pedro in and do stuff like that.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
I cannot stand Pedro Pascal. Like, it's just one of those things where, when you have a, it doesn't make sense why you don't like a person. Like, I have this intense dislike for him. Now, mind you, part of the reason is because he's such an asshole in real life, like what he did with Gina Carano, and like that, the type of person he just is I just don't vibe with. But I also don't like his acting. Like, I thought he was good in Game of Thrones when it first started, like when he kind of came out. I've heard a lot of well, not really. I was just like, he's all right, and then when he got his head crushed, it was great. But I was just but I've heard he's great in Narcos, but I've never watched Narcos. It's just, I don't know. I just don't like the guy. I watched one episode of The Last of Us, and I was like, yep, it's Pedro Pascal. Like, he's not doing anything different. And I hated him as Joel too. I was like, I can't believe they got him for Joel. It just keeps becoming this thing with him. Oh, the other one that I hated him in was Wonder Woman, when he was basically Trump. That was awful. With this, I just feel like this is such a spit in the face to the fans to cast him as Reed Richards, because so many people liked Jim from The Office. What's his name?
John Krasinski. Yeah. I know a lot of people like him. I think you would have been very disappointed with. I think the people would have liked the idea and then saw it and then saw what he did and be like, yeah, because
John Krasinski
Jim, man.
is also just John Krasinski. He's Jim. That's true. But he looks the part. Like, he looks.
No, he doesn't.
Like,
Anson Mount looks the part. Because remember, this is a 1960s brilliant genius of that era. If you take a look at all the men in, say, the NASA space program and the Air Force, who are all smart men and pilots and geniuses to their own right and work really hard, they are not dorky looking in like Revenge of the Nerd style. They are not dorky looking like Jim Halpert. They look like the professor from Gilligan's Island. They look like a very based, competent human being that is smart enough to realize what their position is and play it to that level.
Who do you think could have been better?
as I mentioned earlier, Anson Mount, because he's
I don't know
got
who that is.
he plays Christopher Pike on the Star Trek Strange New World series. He was
Yeah,
he was
that's a
wasted.
great choice, actually.
He was wasted as Black Bolt in the Inhumans because they never should have cast a guy with a good voice and a good looking face to be a guy that
Oh,
can't speak without killing you.
You know
Yeah,
what?
that
Yeah,
was
this guy
weird.
would have been good.
Because you
That's
hold
true.
up his face, like when he doesn't have the big Christopher Pike hair, you put his face up next to all the classic Kirby animations or even like the John Byrne animations of Mr. Fantastic, and you're like, oh, that's actually pretty good. Take a look at the most recent comic by Alec Ross when he did Fantastic Four. That's a Reed Richards is a square-jawed, confident, there you go, focused man, face like that.
Yeah,
You throw
that's
that
true.
in a Mr. Fantastic outfit, and you're like, oh
Oh
yeah,
my God, he would have been perfect, man.
yeah. And then we have had Ian Goff, who played Mr. Fantastic in the Jessica Alba, Chris Evans.
Oh
ones.
God, that he was the best. I loved him.
He's a really good actor too, and like he still looks the part to this day, because one of the interesting aspects of the Fantastic Four is that Reed Richards is between a decade and 15 years older than Sue Storm. And that's why he's like, the father of the Fantastic Four and also the absent-minded professor at the same time. So, I mean, yeah, I think if they did that, people would be like, especially if you saw that, Ed Sullivan style show with Anson Mount in the middle with his muscular frame and his confidence demeanor, I think people would have lost their minds over that, because they're like, oh my God, it looks just like, classic.
It would have been so much more intriguing.
And you wouldn't have that silly Mexican mustache. I'm sorry for using Mexican as an adjective, but it just
no, but he does.
not a
But
good
it's
one. It's
true
not a good
though.
one.
He does. And then people are freaking out about this, like his face being all messed up.
Well, actually, no. I mean, honestly, this is the best thing I've seen as far as like Ben Grimm goes. Because if you look at the other things from the other movies, they look like cancer patients, man, or they look like they have like tumors on them instead of being like a rock. And I love that they got his eyebrows, like the rock eyebrows, because the other films never got that look.
No, the closest was the Roger Corman one. I would say, like,
which is crazy, yeah,
because that's a full like animatronic prosthetic from the early '90s, and then. And they made it work really well. And this one, I say, is like a very appropriate CG upgrade to it.
Yeah,
I didn't mind this either, because I also thought, like, especially this scene where he's like looking at himself, like right after this, I thought this trailer was really well done, because he's like kind of going from this scene to this, and he was a good looking guy, and now he's like extremely ugly, and that's what Ben's struggle is. Like he has to deal with being the Thing. So I liked that they kind of put that in the trailer. There's a lot of stuff in the trailer that I actually did like too. But Dante, one of the things that it kind of worries me though is, like, even though I do love the idea that they're back in the 60s and stuff like that, it gave me like WandaVision vibes again, which was such a letdown. Like I was like, okay, are they going to do the same thing and then do a rug pull like they did with WandaVision, because that turned out to be such a fucking train wreck. And then with you even saying, for example, with Captain America, the final scene, and how they're still focusing on the multiverse aspect of the scenario, it just makes me think like this movie has there's no urgency. Like it's just another universe with another, like, another thing that's just going to be not thing, just generally speaking. I mean, it's just another Fantastic Four and the multiverse of madness that is the MCU now. And do we care? I mean, I don't know like what's going to happen to that, but
yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And that's a good question, because, and it's funny enough, I think the same guy who did WandaVision, I think, is doing this.
Matt Shackman, yeah, he's the director of WandaVision.
Yeah, same guy.
Different writer on the project, but same director.
Yeah, and I thought the first 3 episodes of WandaVision were genius.
I liked it too.
When I saw those first 3 episodes, I really thought, man, we are entering into something special right now. Like this is different, right? And then of course by episode 4 it becomes, oh, it's just another MCU thing, I wanted them to get so weird with it. Like I wanted it to get weird.
Same. Me too. I thought they were going to go like full on Twilight Zone, and I was like,
yes, that's what I wanted. Just something crazy, And I did have reservations when I heard the same guy was doing this movie, But you're right. I don't see where this is going to, transfer over into where we are now with the MCU and with Secret Wars and Doomsday. I'm assuming what's going to happen is one or two things, and it's a stretch, no pun intended, but either Galactus is going to destroy their world, and somehow the Fantastic Four is going to escape through a portal or something and somehow end up in our world, something along those lines, right? Either something like that, or it's going to be like a Lost in Space kind of situation where they go out to space to fight Galactus, but somehow get sucked through a wormhole, and it has to be something that connects them to us in some way. And I don't know how that's going to happen, but it's obviously going to happen, because here's the thing. I'm sorry, but I don't care how good the movie's going to be. If Doom is not a part of the Fantastic Four in some way, I'm walking out. Like I am. Like, there's no way you can have the Fantastic Four without Doctor Doom in some capacity. I'm not saying
Doctor Doom, and apparently it's gonna be, Iron Man. What's his name?
Yeah. And that whatever. I have my problems with that too, but he has to be part of the Fantastic Four in some way or another, right? Even if it's just a kind of like set things up for Doomsday or something. But I think you're right, though. I think a lot of people are going to be wondering, how is this going to? Is this a one-off? Like, how is it going to, relate to what's going on now?
And like, it's gonna take a lot of skill for them to do, like, bring them into our world correctly, and like, make it like we want to care about this. If it's a one-off, that'll just be like, again, why do I care about this movie? It's just a one-off. But they're not doing continuations great anymore. Like, they're not doing the flow into one of the other movies great anymore. And then you add in the Disney Plus series, multiple series. It's like, do I have to do homework to watch this movie? I don't want to do homework to watch this movie. There's going to be just so much bullshit that you have to sit through. And I don't know. And the other part of it too is, I noticed that they didn't even show Reed Richards like stretching in this trailer. So is that because you guys think like just the CG's not done yet with it, or what's the story behind that?
That's a possibility.
Yeah, it could be a possibility. Or the first instance in which they have Reed Richards stretch is something they want to save for the theatrical release, because it might be him stretching out to be like a parachute. Which if they pull that off, that would be amazing. But to your point, Nina, the reason that all of those Disney Plus shows feel like homework is because they don't have a hook there to make you actually care about wanting to watch them. Because like any franchise that has multiple entries, if they weren't entertaining and there's a movie that said, yes, this movie is predicated on these ones, and you weren't entertained by the initial ones, you would look at them like homework. As in, because that movie has made itself dependent on the others, which is why when you take a look at, say, the James Bond franchise, those were very much standalone stories that they had a very fast and loose continuity connection to them, because there's sometimes they would have lines that would make reference to the other adventures that James Bond undertook. But by and large, the story was on its own. Then you take a look at something like Star Wars. Well, guess what? Each of those individual films you could watch on your own and not miss a beat, but you get more out of the series when you watch the trilogy as a whole. Same thing when it comes to the Star Trek trilogy, which is The Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, Voyage Home. That is, those movies you can watch independently, but they do have an aspect of them that make each of them dependent on each other, but they don't dwell on that dependency in order for you to enjoy
especially Search for Spock.
Search for Spock, especially, yeah. Like, you do have to know, but guess what? They made Wrath of Khan so good that you have no problem going back to watch that to find out how Spock died.
God, yes.
And then Search for Spock, very operatic. Definitely not as high on the quality scale of all things considered compared to Khan, but still has a great, story arc and resolution. And then Voyage Home is your fish out of water story of them just trying to get back and also, correct. There's another one with a political message. Hey, it's wrong to hunt a species to extinction.
That was a good one, man. That was a good movie.
So, I mean, that's how you do it on the entertainment side of things. But what Marvel did is they took a thing that had been circulating around Hollywood among writers since 1999 to about 2010. And that was when you have these big IPs in the literature world, such as comic books, you have a ton of stories to tell. You have a ton of interconnectivity to tell. There's a way where you can make, on a theatrical level, follow the model of a television show. But the thing that they forgot is, because long form series like The Sopranos and The Shield and Breaking Bad were kind of at their peak at that era, they were looking at it as current day television model, as opposed to what all of us at that time were pitching, which was episodic television model. Like, let's have an Iron Man movie. Cool. Let's have a Captain America, Thor, Ant-Man. We should have had a Black Widow movie around that same time too. All very much self-contained, isolated stories with a couple of little nods here and there to reference the other characters, to bring them all together into Avengers film, what have you. Have fun. But then you kind of hit a soft reset button with every subsequent film. You don't keep building it up or making it one act of a story. You don't make it part of a mini series. You don't do what like the CW and some of the streaming shows do, where you're like, okay, the first episode of this season will set up everything that we're going to do 10, 12, or 22 episodes later at the end season. And then when you realize, well, wait a minute, if I want to watch something like, say, the Green Arrow show from the CW, you don't have to watch every episode. You just have to watch that first episode of season 1 and that last episode of season 1, and you know everything that's going on.
Pretty much.
And you realize everything else in the middle is filler. And
especially when
now
they
Marvel is kind of
previously on, and it's like literally the entire season.
Well, I mean,
You're like, okay.
we have actually been experiencing what I would call the filler phase or phases of Marvel, because nothing of actual significant value has occurred post Endgame. The first one being, I guess, would be Fantastic Four, because that is like, oh, we're going to a different world now in a different time frame with these characters, the first family of Marvel, and whatever's going to happen with their adventure is going to trigger another series of events as well, which begs the question, well, what were these other 6 movies that we just saw? What were they about? And they're supposed to set up Kang, but unfortunately, because, and I tweeted a little bit about this, Kevin Feige has such a control over Marvel that there's no agency to the creative team that he appoints to each project. Whereas over on the Lucasfilm side of things, Kathleen Kennedy has a lot of control. However, she's also delegated some of that control to Dave Filoni. And when you take a look at some of the directors and writers that are working on those shows, they're following the steps that have been laid out by Kathleen Kennedy and her ilk, but they also put their own stamp on it as well. Like, say what you will about The Last Jedi, which is a terrible film. That is very much a Rian Johnson film.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean,
for sure.
And same thing with like Ahsoka. Yeah, it's a girl boss thing, but that's very much a Dave Filoni show. Like, if you go to WandaVision, it's like, is that really a Matt Farber show, or is it a Jack Schaefer written show? Like, you don't know what it is, but you do know one thing: it's what Kevin Feige wanted, because Kevin Feige's model is, through the powers of being a producer, he is allowing the director to essentially just direct traffic, show up, say action, say cut, maybe talk to the actors a little bit, but basically do everything that's written on this checklist that Kevin Feige and his ilk have ordered. Otherwise, you don't get to come back again. Oh, and guess what? As a director, I know you're supposed to have a little authorship in the editing suite. We don't need you there. We've previs the movie. We've already got it signed off. Production is going to be in the editing suite, making sure the final cut is what it is. You can go off and work on your own thing.
Dude, they handcuffed Sam Raimi.
Yep.
Sam Raimi. You handcuffed Sam Raimi? You get Sam Raimi to do a Doctor Strange movie, and you don't let him go full Raimi? That's crazy.
Oh, and on top of that, you can tell which has been reshot because Wong's hair is longer in the reshoots than it is in the rest in the first round of filming.
You're right. Oh my god! By the way, the reason I froze it on this scene is because I wanted to give a nod to this car. This is fucking badass. Like that, there's just certain things about this trailer that really impressed me, and one of them was this car. I was like, this is great. I love this car
because again, it encapsulates that again, that retro futurism, like the Jetsons. Like we, how we thought the future would look back in those days, and yeah,
I love that. I did love the feel to this movie. It's just so disappointing. Like, Marvel has just become so disappointing that I'm like, this is the movie I wanted to be excited for, and now literally like zero interest. So I feel bad about it because I'm like, I want to be excited for this, and I think she's gonna be great in it. I think the cast is very good. The cast is actually very good, except for him. Like he's just the outlier here.
He really is, and I, and the more I see it, the more it bugs me. Like it's like
I know.
like the more I look at it, it's like, dude, they're this close, and then they have Pedro there, and I'm like,
No, I know. I'm the same way. Now you brought up girl bosses. They're script doctors. So, what was the girl boss situation like in the new Captain America, Dante?
oh man, I went on a whole tirade about this. I've just gotten to the point now where I am literally so sick of this trope of the 110-pound girl taking down a guy who's like 230 pounds, 6'5", and I'm like hand to hand. You know what I mean? I'm like,
yeah.
I'm just so sick of this trope, and this is the craziest I've seen of all those tropes, because in this movie, this girl looks like she's about Anna's size. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, this girl is
5'1",
tiny.
Is she super powered?
No, okay. See, and this is what pisses me off. In the comic book, she is a mutant. She is a mutant with super strength who could fly. She has like these fire projection, but she is strong in the comic because of her powers, right? And she is a mutant. In this, what they did was they took the name of the character and basically just scrapped it and said, you know what, we're going to keep the name. And now she's a product of the Red Room from Black Widow.
Oh, the Black Widow. Okay.
Yeah, she's a widow basically, who's now the Secret Service director for the president in the movie, right? This girl is tiny, and to watch
I'm going to pull this up.
To watch her take out
right?
the guys, I'm like,
Sorry.
come on now.
This
She
is
looks
her,
like she
you
could be on
guys.
an episode of Stranger Things.
Yes, this girl is tiny.
What is this dress she's wearing? Sorry, this totally off topic. But what the
Looks like a
fuck
silk
is
sack.
she's literally wearing a pillowcase. Like, what is happening?
Actually, no, I think that's hanging on my wall in my living room as a curtain.
Oh, it's a curtain.
Because
It's
it's
like
got
a
that bow
bed
thing in
sheet.
there. My girlfriend picked it out and put it up. I have to tolerate it.
This
But
looks
no, I'm
awful.
just so tired of this trope, man. And it's like,
Me
and honestly, more than anything, that took me out of the film, was watching her do those
Oh.
action scenes. I'm like, oh no, absolutely.
That
not.
was that's actually kind of basically where I stopped watching the MCU. Like, I was just done. Was the Hawkeye show, because I watched like 3
God.
episodes of that, and then I was like, this bitch's like beating up like all these dudes, and she's not even super powered, and they're like 200 pounds. Like, no. Like, it's just
Well, the craziest was watching Kate, what's her name, Kate Bishop fight the Kingpin. I'm like, get out of here.
I
I'm
didn't
like,
even
"Get
make
outta
it
here."
that far. I didn't make it that far, but I heard about that, and I'm like,
was-
are you fucking kidding me? Like,
It was pretty bad because when you're dealing with, say, a non-superpowered, weaker character, whether it's a woman or a man, go the Jackie Chan route, which is use the things around you to sort of level the
Right.
playing field. Have their wits be
Yes.
the one that come in there. Get them into that Sarah Connor position at the end of the first Terminator, where she's crawling through the press so that she can hit the button and crush the big guy that's out
Yes.
maneuvering her. That
Yes.
is what we as an audience want. We want to see the guile and wit of the character. We don't want to see this woman pretending to be an adult physically fighting a guy twice her size, unless you get her on his shoulders and she's using her thighs like a noose around his neck, and for some reason he just cannot claw at her legs to get her off, because you can believe that a little bit. But
Right.
it's really, really hard.
You know what though? With this girl, you can't even believe that, man. This girl is tiny.
Because that's how tiny she is.
That's how tiny. Dude, seriously, if her legs were wrapped around my neck, I could throw her off easily. Like, I'm sorry. There's just no way.
Darren's like, that dress weighs more than she does.
Seriously.
It's true.
Probably keeping her to the
Just-
ground. Otherwise, a strong gust will just take her away.
I know, there's like so much fabric. Well, like, fuck. This is so interesting. So, speaking of girl boss, I did see this trailer today, which we're not gonna watch the whole thing because I don't want to get claimed on it. But can we all acknowledge that these people really did think that Kamala was gonna win?
Oh,
Because this is awful. Like, what in the
I couldn't stop laughing
hell?
when I watched this trailer.
This should have been a sequel to Air Force One with Harrison Ford back in like 1997.
Right? I mean, this would have been a funny movie in the 90s, I feel like. Like, we would have been like, oh, this is funny. But man, like freaking the Viola Davis, like, what is that elevator scene? I was just like, get the fuck out of here with her.
But remember, she's a retired veteran who became the first female president of the United States. So that's how you justify it.
That's right. That's right. Oh yeah, this guy's supposed to be Homelander, right? They made it like the whitest of the whitest guys. Is like
Aryan race versus the.
This is so bad. Where's the elevator scene?
There we go.
There it is. There she is. She taking out 3 guys in the elevator. I mean, this is the woman king, guys. She's rescuing everybody.
Yeah, that
God.
I don't know who approved that, but you know what's funny is I don't believe Viola Davis is woke or really even into all that stuff.
No.
I think Viola Davis is like literally like Samuel Jackson, where she won't turn down a paycheck. So
I agree. I 100% agree with you.
they offered her the role, she took the money.
And the reason you know that is because of how long How to Get Away with Murder, that was her show. How long that shit went on for. Because that motherfucking show should have ended like after like 2 seasons tops, like maybe 3. But man, that thing went downhill. And it was like literally every episode was her crying her eyes out with freaking like just like, snot coming out of her nose. And I was like, I can't sit here and watch 10 episodes of you crying. I just can't do it anymore. It's ridiculous. But it's not to say she's not a great actress. It's just like I think she'll take any role. I think she'll just do
whatever's offered.
Well, I mean, she's been working in television before she started doing features for about 15 years. When you work that long in television as a character actor before you land a show like How to Get Away with Murder, you basically realize like the money's coming in. Yeah, I'm not saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Because and also as a woman in Hollywood, she's got a limited lifespan for the screen.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
She's going to take every offer that comes to her. She's going to negotiate the heck out of it to make sure she gets the most she can. And then because 5-10 years from now, we will probably never see her again, unless it's like a very specific art film that people wanted her, and maybe it's where she's actually stretching her wings as an actor and not emulating Liam Neeson here, in the kitchen.
He fucking puts his head on the thingy that's on, apparently.
That'd be the grill.
Grill. Thank you. This is, what's funny is the other night I watched a movie and I was really interested in the movie because it had Jason Statham in it. And I was like, this is going to be good. I'm going to watch this. I've heard this is going to be good. It was called The Beekeeper. Have you guys seen that?
Oh yeah. That was a fun movie.
Yep.
It was a great movie, except for one part. The major DEI that was just inserted into that, like that actress. I'm sorry, Dante.
Oh,
the FBI one? The FBI.
Yeah,
lady?
the FBI actress was awful. Like there was that one scene where they're like, oh, like you're hungover and you're here and you've done the work of like everyone here that's been trying to crack this case for 2 years and you did it in 2 days while hungover. I was like, I'm done. Like this is fucked. You could edit that lady out of the movie and it would be a much better movie. It feels like they had a different movie and they had a really good one. And then somebody was like, no, we need to inject like woke into this. And that's what it became. Because otherwise it was.
I will say there are some encouraging things that are happening though. Like, I mentioned like that friend I had at the MCU. Like he told me that, last year they went on a tear as far as firing every single activist that they had on their staff. They were like, we need to start making money again. And so they fired a lot of people last year to kind of at least get the ball rolling to get back on track. So I think and a lot of studios are kind of following suit with that. Like I think they're just tired of not making money anymore. I think
you're right.
And I think what Trump did was he kind of gave them an out, right? Because I mean, culture has changed, socially things have changed. It's given these studios kind of like a lifeline to finally get rid of all of these DEI departments and activists. And so I think there are better movies and better TV shows coming. The problem is, though, there's so much garbage in the pipe that it's still going to take a while to get to the good stuff.
I agree.
Absolutely. Like we started seeing the change very subtly about 2 years ago. Last year, a bit better, because how many movies came out last year that you said were, hugely woke or hugely agenda pushing? Like hardly any. But the thing is, they also weren't great. So like
Right.
that's the other part too. The other thing you have to remember is that the profit margins, and yes, there are still profit margins, even with failures at Disney, are so slim that is why, especially over at Marvel, they've done their purge. They're like, listen, if we can get rid of these activists and we can cut these DEI programs, our margin for, potential profit increases by whatever we were spending on those two programs by default. That's already a net positive. So the next part is like, well, now how do we recapture the audience? And they're hoping to do so with Fantastic Four and Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom, and bringing back the Russo brothers, and bringing back McFeely, who wrote most of the MCU that the whole world ended up loving.
Well, and they have Daredevil next month, so that's really going to help them.
Oh,
Yep.
this
And
is
that
true.
That is like one of the most recent types of their shows, because they scrapped the first few episodes that they shot originally due to the actor and writer strike. When they came back, they just reworked the whole thing. And I know there's some out there trying to make a whole hoopla with the showrunner talking about they don't want, a bunch of scenes of them talking about the merits of heroism. I understood what he was saying, because he was basically saying we don't want scenes of our heroes talking about what they did in a scene or a previous scene or what they're going to do in another scene and dwell on that. We want those scenes to be short and important and get us to the action where we get to develop them that way. Otherwise, what you have is a CW show. And you don't want a CW show. Because I love the Daredevil Netflix series for different reasons, because if you actually take a look at that first season, whatever Matt Murdock is going through is very separate to what the Kingpin is going through, because the Kingpin pretty much orchestrates his own downfall by falling for Vanessa. And it's not until the very last episode where Matt Murdock actually captures him as Daredevil and screws up his escape plan. Like, that's it. Every episode up to that, they know about each other, but nothing that Matt Murdock is doing is really negatively impacting Kingpin's operations. Kingpin is just losing his focus because he's fallen in love. And
I
like,
still
that's
haven't watched
brilliant.
the third season. I still have to watch it, because when
It's
they
actually good.
canceled it,
Third season is damn good, actually.
Yeah.
I know, but
Great
when they
stuff.
canceled it, I was so mad that I was like, I'm just not even gonna watch
Well,
this. Like,
they canceled it
again,
because
I lost
Bob Iger and Kevin Feige got a little jealous of what the Netflix team was doing, and they were also setting up for their Disney Plus aspect of it.
right.
And they botched the heck out of that.
But so with Dante, you actually segued into the main topic of the night, which is Disney overhauling DEI efforts amid Trump administration purge. So you kind of like, started talking about this, and look, I feel like they're kind of saying all the right things. I don't know if they're actually going to do any of these things that is going to actually bring them out of this giant heap of trash fire that they're in.
Right.
But I guess we'll find out. Script Doctor, do you want to maybe, I don't know if you want to read this article or, let's
All
do
right,
it.
no problem. Disney overhauls DEI efforts amid Trump and administration purge. Here. So, amid President Donald Trump's frontal assault on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, Disney has scaled back and restated its DEI efforts, aligning them more directly with business goals and company values. The tweaks, discussed in an internal memo, are less dramatic than DEI shifts at other major companies from Meta to Amazon to Google, but meant to stem potential backlash after one of Trump's first acts in office was to shut down federal DEI initiatives and put employees on leave. Federal contractors and grantees are also under scrutiny. PBS, funded by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, said this week it is closing an office dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts amid Trump's flurry of executive orders.
So I have a question. Like, the part that says, they're kind of doing it, but not as much as Meta and like Google and stuff. Does that mean they're keeping the tampons in the men's bathroom? Like, I don't know what that means.
Well,
like,
think of that as a backup. If you run out in the ladies, you just go to the men's and get the stuff that no one's been touching for the last few months.
This is true. At least we have a supply.
It's a backup supply in the one place no one would ever think to look.
But you know what, though? Honestly, I that kind of stuff, what they do within their company, I don't care. As long as it doesn't come across on screen,
Mhm.
True.
They could do whatever they want. They could be having like trans orgies in the break room.
Oh,
Lady
oh
parties.
no.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
as long as
no.
the movies and shows are good, I don't care.
Wow. Okay.
Don't need to know how the sausage is made, just that it's actually healthy for you.
Exactly. Just put it on the bun, throw some mustard and kraut on it, and it better be good. That's it.
Yep.
I don't know, dude. I think I'd feel like some sort of way if they're having trans orgies in the bathrooms. But hey, like to each their own, I guess. Okay, keep going.
I'm just saying, I just want good product. I'm just
I know.
Disney is also updating disclaimers that run before certain titles on its streaming services that currently warn viewers of negative depictions and or mistreatment of people or cultures. In a forthcoming change, the tag will read, "This program is presented as originally created and may contain stereotypes or negative depictions
Oh,
and be included
God.
in the detail sections." I
This
would
is
prefer
okay.
this over the 5 to 10 minute speech from some actor I'm not familiar with talking about the context of this film and how you as an audience member needs to ignore it and not think that the company that made this film 40 to 60 years ago is still using the same mentality with their new like I don't need that malarkey. It's just
It's funny. It's like, yes, this is the lesser of two evils, but I'm like, we are like people are adults. Like, can we be treated like adults, especially when it comes to adult movies? Like, I don't know. Like, we're talking about Disney here, so it's a little bit different because that's kids shows.
Mhm.
But like, when it comes to like, let's say something like Captain America, which it kind of is made for adults. Like, it's not really made for kids. The kids aren't watching this, are they? Like, how
No,
many kids
they're
were in the theater?
No, I think kids are watching MCU stuff.
They are
I don't
like,
think kids are interested in movies or television at this point. Well, here's the fun thing that's kind of funny. Over the last 4 months, I've been closely paying attention to what new types of YouTube channels have been popping up. And a lot of the ones that have been popping up and taking off are people between the ages of 18 and 35 that are watching movies that they haven't watched before from the 1960s to the end of the 1990s. And these are these
that's interesting.
first-time watchings. And they're like, wow, this is way better than the stuff I've seen in theaters. It's like, well, you know what? People in Hollywood, especially at the studio level, could take note of that and be like,
Well,
well, why is the competition stuff that our predecessors made? It's like, because you don't live up to the people you replaced. And that's how the industry was able to survive. You got fresh new talent that had hunger and ambition, and they proved their mettle, and then they earned the positions, partially because there's also a lot of wheeling dealing going on, but they earned the positions they had to continue those risk-taking measures and diversifying the content that they put out. So it's not all just major IP franchises dominating the schedule. You've got brand new books that the rights have been purchased. They've done adaptations to that. You've got remakes of classics that have not been heard of or even in the conversation for like 20 or 30 years. You've got a couple of indie films. You've got some original story ideas. It's all peppered around there, and each of them get enough air so that the general audience is understanding that they exist. But I would say since Disney acquired Marvel and they put so much behind it, and then in addition with their Star Wars, that when you go to the movies these days, your general audience, especially the ones that would be continuing the culture of films, thinks that movie theaters are for Marvel and Star Wars movies and nothing else. So that's why you got like anyone but you or a Beetlejuice or a Barbie or an Oppenheimer, and they exploded financially, right? And
that's true.
the fact of the matter is that we would have all of those types of movies kind of more frequently than we would then just once every couple of years.
Now, what's crazy though is we are seeing Disney kind of spread their wings a little bit, right? We're seeing them allow things that are a lot more violent now. Like we're seeing blood, we're seeing things that we never saw in a Disney film before or a Disney property before. So we are going to get that. I mean, we're never going to see boobs in a Disney film. I mean, that's just not going to happen. But the violence has definitely stepped up quite a bit. So I mean, they are kind of growing a little bit as far as what they're kind of allowing within their normal
parameters. I think I think it's also kind of telling about our culture that we'd rather have our children see violence than a pair of beautiful breasts.
Script that was so interesting that you say that is because I was actually watching the new Witcher show, like not the show, but it's like an animated TV. I think it's like a TV movie. I was watching that last night on Netflix. It's with the original voice guy for the video games, and I love that guy. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna definitely watch this. I started watching it. I had to go to bed because it was like way too late, so I didn't finish it. But while I was watching the show, one of the things I realized was that like it had great violent scenes. Like because he's fighting monsters and stuff like that. It's Geralt of Rivia. Obviously, he's going to be fighting. It had really great action, but all the chicks had zero boobs, and they had like mermaids in the show, and the mermaids had no boobs. Like the female mermaids were
I
like
hate that so
flat
much.
chested. And I was like, what the fuck am I watching? Because there's a lot of sexual appeal with The Witcher, like there's a lot of sexual connotations and there's a lot of sex. Okay. Let's just say it. And it was missing. Like that was missing. So there was all this violence, but there was like a scene with Yennefer and like they're supposed to be making love and you don't even see the outline of her body. Like they're not even like they're like zoomed in either into their faces. There's literally like zero silhouette. All the chicks like have barely any boobs. I'm like, are boobs really that bad? Like I don't understand.
Boobs are great.
Well, you have to understand though what boobs represent. What it did represent in the woke era, which we're still kind of a part of, is when you have a woman who's voluptuous, who has much ass and boobs and all that stuff, is it makes the trans women feel uncomfortable because they don't have that, right? And hear me when I say they are trying to appeal to that crowd.
Yes.
So they will slight women. They will make them as unattractive as possible. They'll make them as unfeminine as possible, just so that crowd could feel better about themselves.
Not only that, there's a lot of people in the casting world, especially women, who do not look as great as some of the women they are supposed to be casting or depicting.
That too.
And the other part too, a voluptuous woman is basically an instinctual message of nurture and nourishment. And guess what? I'm sorry, but a person who has transitioned from male to female just does not have that level of nourishment to offer offspring. They can nurture them in another way, but not that way. And that's one of the things that why adult men, when they see a voluptuous woman, they're like, I can enjoy that, and my children will definitely grow up to be very strong.
It's fun for everybody.
Exactly.
Oh
two tears.
This has been going on for a while. Like the whole idea of sex being way more unacceptable than violence has been going on for a while. Like one of the first movies I really noticed it in was the new Hellboy, like the one with Mila Jovovich. Yeah, that one. And where like there was like major violence in the movie and they would barely show her body. Like they were like, oh, we're not going to show any nudity. There's no she doesn't have boobs. Like, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on?
I mean, and we've already seen this happen with video games already, I mean, what's crazy to me is even Mortal Kombat went that way. They went completely woke. Because if you remember,
so true.
Mortal Kombat has some of the sexiest women in gaming, and Katana, Melina will wear these crazy outfits. Now they're all covered up. Now they're flat on both sides, and it's but yeah, you can still see somebody get their heart ripped out.
Right. Exactly. You can like literally see people's heads explode, but God forbid we see a nipple. Like holy shit. Yeah, it's like I'm over that. But okay, keep going with this article. Let's see. What else do you have to say?
The memo today from Disney's HR chief Sonia Coleman aimed to provide an update on how our values are embedded in our leader compensation programs, specifically our other performance factors, OPFs, as well as share some of the work that has been underway to evolve our talent strategy consistent with these values. That is malarkey and word salad on paper there, that quote. Because who cares about another performance factor when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion? Okay, regardless. The language does not mention diversity, but focuses on belonging. It does not mention equity, but does call for an environment where everyone can excel. Changes include replacing a diversity and inclusion metric with a talent strategy factor in executive compensation planning to assess how leaders uphold company values, incorporate different perspectives to drive business success, cultivate an environment where all employees can thrive, and sustain a robust pipeline to ensure long-term organizational strength. I think executive compensation needs to be far more restricted to things that actually pertain to their job, as opposed to environmental, like office environment. Just that's my personal take on it, because I know, or I know some people who work in various studio systems, and they read emails, they make a couple of phone calls, and then and that's their job every day. And then you find out, usually at the end of every fiscal year, they're getting a bonus of like $50,000 to $100,000, and you're wondering, like, I know what you do, and you don't do anything. How are you entitled to such compensation? It's the structure of the company. Whereas I know people in other parts of studio systems that work their butt off, that manage, like line producers especially, and they get diddly squat when they succeed and pull off and achieve great results within budget. And you don't see any bonuses for them, for saving the company money, for delivering a great product on time. Nope, it's the people above them. And the corporate mentality is that, well, because of good leadership, that's why they saved all that money. And it's like, well, let that person you just gave a bonus to explain to you exactly what they did, and not use word salad like what we got in this memo here. You'll never get an answer. But the line producer, they could tell you exactly what they did, how they did it, why they did it, how they coordinated with everything. And you should be giving the money to them and cut out the middleman. Just like what Godzilla -1 did. They cut out tons of people in between the production and post-production and pre-production process, and they made a heck of a great movie with a very limited budget.
Probably my favorite movie of that year.
Yeah.
Same. Man, speaking of that, can we all acknowledge how all the Oscar movies are fucking absolute garbage? I mean, other than Wicked.
You know what they are, but here's the thing. I cannot wait for the Oscars. I'm going to have my champagne ready. I am going to be Film Threads doing a whole watch along. And the reason why I'm excited for it is because I want to see what happens with the Amelia Perez situation.
I know. I
have to know what they're going to do. Like, are they going to snub it? Are they going to snub?
They're
or are they
going
to actually give it to me?
There's no way. I mean, it wasn't going to win anyways. I mean, let's face it.
Like, you're wrong. You're wrong, Nina. They were planning to give it all to them. They were planning it, right? This is the they've been wanting to give a trans woman Best Actress for so long, and they were so close that this was their year. Right,
but it's not gonna happen.
And then they fucked it all up.
It's gone. It's gone, dude. We were going over that like on Toxic Femme on Monday, and I read some of her tweets, and I was like, well, at first I was like, this isn't like bad at all. Like, I mean, I don't disagree with some of the stuff she's saying. And then Tom was like, girl, like she talks about Hitler, like, why are we canceling this person? And then it's like, oh yeah, Hitler was right, by the way. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, where did this come from?
Yeah, because when you're reading it first, you're like, oh, she's kind of based a little bit, actually. Yeah. At first. And then you keep going and you're like, oh.
And then she got too much attention, and then Kanye got jealous, and then he did what he did.
Oh God.
Oh God, that whole thing. That's fucking crazy.
But no, I honestly, Amelia Perez was destined to sweep, and I think now they have to recount and do it again, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
Have you seen it?
Yes, it's awful.
Oh my God, you watched it.
I'm not even being biased or unfair. It's not good. It's just not a good film. Like, I'm sorry.
Script Doctor, did you see it?
When I saw that it was written and directed by a bunch of French people addressing Mexican culture to market to the United States, I knew it was a disaster.
Yeah. And you know who hates that film the most? Mexican people.
Mexicans, yeah. I've heard. I mean, I
hate it the most.
I've heard Mexican people, even woke Mexican people, are like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, they're not interested.
Do you understand what the message of that film is? Like, the message of the film is this: this cartel king kills a bunch of people, does a bunch of dirty shit his whole life. Then all of a sudden, once he transitions, he's good right?
Mhm.
All of a sudden he's being worshipped at the end because all of a sudden he's a woman now. So everything he did before that was fine or was forgiven, right? The message is so bad in this film that not only does it make Mexicans look bad, it makes trans people look bad.
Is this one of those Inception things, though? This is what I was bringing up to Tom on Toxic Femme, too. I was like, is this one of those Inception movies where it's like trying to say that where our society is going as a whole, because that's what we do now, is like whenever somebody transitions, it's like, oh, you can't do anything wrong. Like there's, like that Family Guy clip that Tom always plays, like,
Oh,
with
like
the
you
trans
can't have your
person
phone
at
at the bar. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I'm
yeah.
trans. Oh, then you can do whatever you want without any rules.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
See,
like, I
that
was
would-
like wondering if this like some sort of commentary on like that aspect of our life and how ridiculous like our life has actually become, and people are actually like taking it seriously. Like, I'm just wondering about that, but people keep telling me like, no, I'm thinking too much into it. So
See, you're pitching a satire that would actually be brilliant in current day, where basically you have someone that is, a war criminal who decides to transition away, and the underlying the satirical message is that testosterone is evil, and you have to be, in order to be a good person, you have to be a woman.
right.
And you basically just play up on it like a Tootsie meets, I don't know, Usual Suspects. Like,
Oh my god.
if you can make the devil
Actually, I'd watch that movie though.
yeah, and I
I
am
would
trying
watch
to
it
see-
too.
Trying to see if now I can formulate a coherent plot out of that.
But that's what I'm talking about. I'm like, when I first heard the plot of the movie, like, because a lot of people have said the same thing you did, Dante, and I was like, that actually sounds kind of interesting because it sounds like a satirical commentary on what's actually going on, because that is what's going on. Like, people are doing all sorts of fucked up shit, being like, oh, by the way, I'm a woman, and everything's like, oh, that's fine, or like, we're gonna stick you in a woman's prison now, even though you're a rapist.
Right.
Like,
Let me
it's like,
reward you by putting you in a women's prison.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't work when they still got the original equipment there. Like, it's like, okay, you
Right.
can go to the women's prison, but we have to castrate you.
We have to chop it off before you go
Like,
in there.
How committed to a woman are you? I'm so committed, I'm willing to go to a women's prison. Then, okay, next room to the operating table.
I
See,
completely
that would be
agree.
good.
Yeah.
I would be fine with that. I'd be like, you know what?
Likewise.
At least they've chopped it off. So, anyways, so Disney, are we hopeful about the DEI with Disney being somewhat
Well, my
toned
thing is,
down?
I want to be hopeful not just for Disney, but for all of Hollywood. I want all of Hollywood to take these measures, man. But if we're talking about Disney, here's the thing, Nina. I'm hopeful about Disney proper. I'll put it to you another way. I'm hopeful about Pixar and MCU. Lucasfilm is lost. Lucasfilm is lost. They're never. It's a done deal. They're lost. Kathleen Kennedy will burn that studio to the ground before she bends over, right? But Pixar and the MCU do want to start making money again. So, 2/3 of the company want to make money. 1/3 doesn't care.
Yep.
Do you guys think that they're ever gonna just tell her, listen, Kathy, like, please just we're gonna throw you a big party. We're gonna honor you. You just gonna have to step aside now, girl.
She'll burn that studio to the ground, and everybody with it. She knows where all the bodies are buried. They will not touch her. They will let her do whatever she wants.
She's a type of Hollywood legacy because she's part of that revolutionary guard from the late 60s to the late 70s.
Yep.
Her presence in the industry has allowed 2 to 3 generations of people get a career in Hollywood. So she knows she's not going anywhere. Only a handful of other people have her level of power. The other part too is that they're already giving her awards and accolades as a signal to say maybe you should bow out. But the thing is, she doesn't have to bow out. She knows where she is. Right now, like I'm of the mindset that I think Carrie Beck, who is one of the executive producers over at Lucasfilm now, and she's got her name pretty much attached to every Disney Plus show, and I think she's even got her name attached to the next 2 quote unquote Star Wars movies that may or may not ever come to fruition. I think she is being basically primed to take over afterwards. And she's like only think 39 years old, so she's very young and she could stick around for a long time unless we get new leadership over at Disney corporate, such as Bob Iger goes out. Because to your point, the only studio that's actually like having to roll back their DEI initiative is Disney. Because guess what? Universal, Paramount, Warner Brothers, they did that a few years ago. Essentially, what Trump has done with his executive order, with that and Disney taking a cue of it, is basically to quote Star Trek, Search for Spock specifically. Thank you, Mr. Scott. You've repaired the barred doors after the horses have come home. Like, again, the market had already done what it needed to do by conveying to the studio systems, like, yeah, guess what?
True.
You want diversity with your characters? We're fine with that. But you gotta execute it at the same standards you would as if you weren't being diverse to the characters. You have to actually not parade them around like they're some sort of a circus freak, and actually give us a story that connects with us and resonates with us. The studios have figured that out. There is going to be a couple of films over the next year and maybe even year after that, next 2 years, especially considering like what we just saw with that G20 bit, that's going to be part of that old guard. That's just going to be phased out. But
yeah, because it's in the pipe. It just has to come out.
It just has to come out.
Yeah.
But those are few and far between. And as I tweeted earlier, if you were surprised that G20 was coming out, and considering that's made by Amazon Studios with MGM, you have not been paying attention to what Amazon Studios has been putting out. Remember, these are the people that did Rings of Power.
Yeah, Rings of Power, anyone? Like, dude,
Like,
that show
Halo.
Expect them to not do that. Like,
Oh yeah, Halo. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Halo. Like, the only exceptions were Reacher and the Terminal List, and that had to do with the fact that Skydance, which is partly in partnership with Paramount, had certain rights to it. They said, no, you cannot do this thing that we want to do. That you want to do with that. It has to stay true to this. This is the level of stewardship that we require.
Yeah.
And the other part too, which is kind of which is to Dante's point with regards to like Marvel wanting to make money again. If you haven't yet, I would say plug your nose at first, but then give it a shot. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man cartoon, because it's not trying to be a definitive Spider-Man show. Like, that's the first thing. It's not trying to say this is the definitive Spider-Man. This is the best Spider-Man. This is what Spider-Man you want to have. This is generally a long form what if Spider-Man show that has race swap the Osborns, but Peter Parker is still Peter Parker, still has his, anxieties, his shortcomings, his doubts. And it's taking the story in a different way. It's doing one thing that it's allowing him to learn the lesson of great power comes great responsibilities without Uncle Ben being around to have taught him that lesson and to make the mistake that cost Uncle Ben his life. They got rid of Uncle Ben at the start, and they said, this is the premise we're running with, and we want to take it in this direction. And then they have the character of Lonnie, who ends up becoming Tombstone, and they've run him parallel to Peter Parker. So we have a double origin story where they're starting off in a similar place, similar difficulties, very smart kids at his high school, and certain elements externally are challenging their ethos, and they're going in their own directions, where Peter's becoming more of the hero, but he's getting tempted by, power and the abuse of that power. And Lonnie is the hero who's being tempted by responsibility, but he's making the wrong choice with those responsibilities. And you can see them separate. You're like, okay, great. And the other part too is there's no front and center political or woke ideology in it. It's almost inconsequential, but they're playing around with a lot of older tropes. And I'm like, I was very surprised by this, because usually after, say, 8 episodes, you're thinking, okay, well, there's the other shoe that has dropped. This is what they're trying to say. This is what they're trying to do. But they're kind of playing it a little bit more authentic to what the stories entail. Like, they don't have any type of racial triggering when it comes to Lonnie's character, because his younger brother gets involved in the gang, and he can't leave the gang. So Lonnie says, all right, you kick my brother out and I'll step in his place, because he wants to protect his brother. That is not a racial thing.
Like sacrificing for his brother.
Not based on race or any type of ethnicity or any type of culture. It's based on the fact that the older brother is trying to look out for his younger brother so that he doesn't ruin his life. And the older brother thinks that he has the ability to wherewithal that situation so that he can spare his family this trauma. But
I will say this. You saying there's no Uncle Ben, I'm like, I'm out. I'm out already. Fuck this. Like, no way.
But it's not a for the modern audience type of show. Like, that's the thing.
You said it's a what if, so I guess like what if universe.
It's very much a what if.
I guess I can kind of get behind that, but honestly, like one of the reasons I really didn't want to watch the show, just generally speaking, was the animation. Like, the animation looks so bad. I was like,
it's Kirby style animation put into motion, and it's weird.
I don't like it.
it's just
Yeah,
weird.
the animation really threw me off, man. You know
Almost
what?
fine.
I like a wild swing. I like when studios take a wild swing. That one for me though was a little bit too wild. Like as far as the animation, I was like, I don't know.
I think
I'm
like
not feeling this.
yeah, what was most annoying for me when I saw the ad too was like, because I really like X-Men 97. So I was like, so what? The Spider-Man people get fucked? Like we don't get our like 90s Spider-Man. We get this. Like what the hell is this shit? So I don't, because I love Spider-Man. So I'm like,
Actually, there are rumors of Spider-Man 98.
I
Yeah.
know people are
Oh.
talking about it. I'm like, where is it? Is it happening? Because then they dropped this thing, and I was like, is this
Well,
what they were
it
talking about the whole time? Because
it would have happened along with I think an Iron Man 94 and Hulk 96 of the old classic Marvel revival cartoons, but because Disney did not get along with Bo DeMeo, a lot of those plans have now been taken to the reevaluation zone, as I like to call it.
tragic. Honestly, that whole thing is fucking tragic because he did a pretty good job. Like
Well,
yeah,
he surprised everybody, man. I like I said, I apologize to the guy. That's
Me
how good of
too.
a job he did.
He knocked it out of the park. The only thing I didn't like about that show, honestly, was also the animation because I thought they cheaped out on it. Like they went, when you have the Korean studios doing the animation for you, and they have like package tiers.
Yeah,
They went with like the cheapest tier possible. And I'm like, I mean, they took Rogue's butt away. Okay, like
Yeah,
there's
that
no
was some
sex
bullshit.
appeal.
Well,
Come
they
on.
did. Okay, so they use this this new method where it's basically like a motion capture type of animation. So there's not actually an actor kind of like doing all the actions and stuff, although in some cases they have borrowed it. But essentially they create a 3D model in a 3D program, and then they put the skin of their cartoon character on it, and then they can manipulate it in any way they want. So if the initial 3D model of Rogue has her with a B cup and no butt, then in every angle and everything that you get, that's what you're going to see. You're not going to get that classic apocalypse butt shot that has been famous for 25 years because they don't animate the models with every frame. It's put into a computer program and it's rendered out with that full movement. And the weird thing about it is that you now have the ability to do cinematic level type of cinematography on a cartoon. And I think because for 100 years, we're so used to cartoons being in a specific way that when we see this new technology applied to it, it causes a weird uncanny valley type of response
does.
where it's like,
It really does.
it's not a 12 or 22 frames a second animation. It's a full, 24 to 28 frames of animation in the same way that film is recorded. And because there's no gaps in movement and everything is all hyper smooth, it just doesn't feel like a cartoon anymore, even though it looks like a cartoon. And Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man show, it's very heavily trying to be a not a Steve Ditko type of animation, but a Jack Kirby style of animation off the comic page. They even have comic panels in there for transitions and stuff because they really want to lean into it's being a comic book show. And I would say on the artistic side of things, in theory, it's really cool. But I think because it's all done through computers and there's no soul through the animator's hand crafting it feels at arm's reach.
It really does. It just, there was something off about that whole show. Like, I even though I loved it, I thought it was great. There definitely seemed off. Like I was like, oh, that there's not. I don't know. The word you use is soul, and I think that that's what was really missing from it too. Now things are going to get worse, I think, in terms of that, because, well, I mean, we talked about a little bit about how Kanye went crazy. A couple days ago. I mean, he's been crazy the whole time, but he kind of showed his crazy. So then somebody dropped this, like a little response to Kanye, and it went kind of nuts. And I mean, I could tell immediately that it was AI, but I guess a lot of people could not.
Charger never looks that good in a shirt.
Well, she's also a little bit older now. She doesn't look like this anymore. But and also freaking Woody Allen, like he's not gonna go into like Woody Allen's not doing fucking cameos like that.
Neither is Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And also, you could tell it's AI because that's Mark Zuckerberg's
look at that blink.
old hair.
Yeah, and his blink, the way he blinks is like so robotic. I mean, and I know he's a robot, but it's still, I mean, there's a lot of, and same with Lisa Kudrow. Like Lisa Kudrow, she doesn't look like that
She looks
anymore.
way
She's
too young.
so
Way
young
too
in this. She looks like she's in Friends like 2 days ago. I don't know who these people are.
Jack Black with his trimmed beard. That's been around for a while.
Yeah. It's
Lenny
it's
Kravitz
interesting.
looks the same.
Yeah, Lenny
Yeah, he
does look the same.
Lenny
That's
Kravitz looks
true.
exactly the same.
That's Woody Allen from
true.
the 80s. You should see him now.
It
He's
really
falling
is.
apart.
Mila Kunis is not doing anything anymore right now. That was like the other, like the biggest tell was Mila Kunis was in this, and I'm like, she's not doing anything because they're staying away from like the spotlight right now. She's not gonna
She's
come
just
out.
voice acting on Family Guy still. That's it. That's the only thing she's doing.
And then you got
Until
Adam
this Diddy
Sandler.
situation goes away, she's not doing nothing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like that is not happening. So then ScarJo came out and said something about this. She was like, I don't like that. She doesn't like it. So it says Scarlett Johansson speaks out against an AI video of celebrities fighting Kanye West's anti-Semitism. AI versions of Johansson, Adam Sandler, and more were used in the clip. Quote, I'm a Jewish woman who has no tolerance for anti-Semitism or hate speech of any kind. But I also firmly believe that the potential for the hate speech multiplied by AI is far greater greater threat than any one person who takes accountability for it. We must call out misuse of AI, no matter its messaging, or we risk losing a hold of reality.
Yeah,
That is really interesting.
You had that chance during the actors' strike, but you hired a skeevy lawyer who I've never liked to represent you in negotiations, and he basically said, "No, AI. We'll make sure that you, the actors, can control your likeness on AI." And I'm like, "No, you can't. Like, say what you will, you can hate the writers for the strike, but they secured something in their contract which basically says, if AI is detected in the work, you will be held to account for that, and it's not going to be good because you cannot replace the creative mind with AI." And that was a stipulation in the new MBA. The actors didn't get that at all. They didn't even though there's a number of people, including Justine Bateman, who are trying to fight for it and warn people about it. The actors just did not grasp it. And that's mostly due to the fact that actors, by and large, with very few exceptions, are morons.
Yeah, Justine's really taking up the cause, man. Like she's really fighting against this. In fact, she's having a film threats hosting a film festival with her, where it's basically just all short films made by real people and no AI, and it's all to bring awareness to, like, AI is not good for the industry at all. The thing is, Scarlett Johansson is very right about this, man. I'm with her 100% on this. I think, look, I mentioned this earlier with Chris. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Okay, we just can't do it. We can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. AI is here, and there's nothing we can do about it. But we got to find a way to regulate it. We got to find a way to, like, put parameters where your likeness can't just be used by everybody. And if someone does do it, there has to be repercussions for that, and heavy ones at that. Because if you let this run rampant, it will literally destroy not just entertainment, man. Like I mentioned earlier, this goes into crime. Like this affects a lot of things, man, if you let AI go unchecked.
Well, it's AI mixed with the deep fake technology, which has been kind of being slowly phased out. I agree with your point that there needs to be certain regulations put in place. I don't think it's necessarily regulations against AI, but actually more like personal privacy and property rights.
Well, likeness has to be protected, man.
Well, because we already have a number of protections of likeness rights. I mean, that AI video clearly violated a lot of it, which is probably why the person who made that is going to face some consequences. But I think if we build a culture that actually treats AI with scrutiny and disdain, as on the creative side of things, would actually be better for it than trying just to overregulate it. Because again, you're now going to be giving powers to certain bodies that are going to most likely abuse those powers. The other part too is, and this comes into a topic that is really, really divisive, especially in the legal space. And that is, if you're outside and someone videotapes you, they kind of have a right to do that, However, if they monetize that, they legally have to be able to compensate you for that because they're making profit or money off of your image. And
or you should have the power to tell them to take it down.
Right. And right now we don't have that. And we also see a lot of people, especially like this new pocket of citizen journalists that are actually just doing that specifically to get a rise out of people, whether they're employees of a private business, employees of a public business, people just randomly on the street having an altercation that is none of anyone else's business to observe. But they are using that, putting it on the social media circuit, gaining a massive amount of money because they've gone viral. And it's exploitation of those people because just because you're out in public does not mean that you have forfeited your right to privacy. Because as long as you're not talking to anybody in public, as long as you're going to a specific space and you're not just wandering or loitering, you are still technically a private citizen. It's only when you elevate that stuff to the status of celebrity or politician, representative, or, you know, what have you, that, yeah, you kind of lose a little bit that because you've exchanged some of that privacy for all the gains that you have managed to achieve to get to that level. So it's a quid pro quo, give and take sort of thing. But yeah, like the other part too, and I was fortunate because in Canada in 2016, when video sharing was the thing, there were people that were like videotaping me, and I said, "Are you planning to make money off of that?" And they said, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, you got to cut me in because guess what? Whether you're in Canada or the United States, if you are going to create some visual medium for profit, you have to get release forms from the people in that video or in that production in order to achieve that, and you have to come, and that usually comes with compensation. And if you don't do that, you can get sued, and I sued, and I won every single time.
Wow.
Because
I didn't actually know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, and you'll never find a video of myself on the internet in that way, because I'm very good at finding out when I'm being filmed, and also very good at finding out who that person is and stopping them, because I don't want like if you're gonna make money, cut me in, man. But
Right.
if you're not cutting me in, I'm taking you to court. And everybody needs to have that mentality.
I think that's an interesting line of thought. I will say this too. I mean, I don't like AI. Like I'm not a fan, but I will say this because there was also this article that went around saying the Academy is considering changing its Oscar submission requirements so that films would have to disclose their use of AI. Governors and branch executives committees are now investigating how AI is used in each branch with an eye towards making discourse mandatory in the 2026 Oscar rules. And I just feel like this, like to your point of saying that there was there's no putting this genie back in the bottle. I feel like this is like literally at this point kind of being like, oh, you shouldn't even use Photoshop because like, man, Photoshop is all AI. Like that, all of it is AI. Like where are we drawing the line? Like where, like most of these editing softwares use AI. I don't know any software that doesn't use AI anymore. So, I mean, I don't know where people are going to draw the line with this, in terms of what can be used. This just seems to me like very old school thinking, and like and old school. By old school, I mean like the old guard just being kind of like resistant to what's next.
Right.
Because I feel like this is it. Like this is going to be the future. So, like basically everything is going to have AI in it. Are they going to have an AI category at the Oscars? I don't know, but most things. I mean, there's like some drama with. I think Emilia Perez has AI that started this conversation. I think. What was the other one that had AI in it?
The Brutalist used some AI
The
special
Brutalist
effects. Yep.
apparently has done it, but most of these movies are going to just be using AI. I mean, did you guys see? Like, I don't know if you guys saw Jeremy Boring post that AI commercial they did last week for the Daily Wire, and he was like, we spent $1 million doing our previous commercials, and this one cost us $46. Now the commercial was god awful. Like, I mean, it was absolutely terrible, but
Sure.
But that's
look at the funding that they saved.
I mean,
But I think the difference being is I completely understand what you're saying, Nina, and I agree with it. Actually, when you're using it for like creative things, I honestly have no problem with that. Like, it is what it is, right? My thing is when it comes to likeness, that's when I'm like, that's when it needs to get some regulation going, right? You can't just take someone's image and create your own movie with their image. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like there has to be some kind of protection from just people. Like if you're creating backgrounds with it, honestly, I don't care.
What about deceased people?
Ooh, see, that's the families. Like there's a lot of things. Like
that gets into estate law. Like it's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of stuff. Like James Earl Jones, he sold his voice. Well, technically, he sold his Darth Vader voice, not his actual voice, but his Darth Vader voice to Disney Lucasfilm. And they own that outright. I know some companies are vying for the rights for James Dean because they want to bring him back, and to some other actors, Steve McQueen and whatnot. I understand.
I think Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill sold his likeness to Disney as well.
Well, he sold the young Luke likeness to Disney. Like he sold the likeness he had when he was doing those films. Fortunately for him, he's old now. And
does it matter? Is it like do they distinguish? Like, oh, you just
you set the perimeters for whatever your deal is. You set the perimeters for it.
Yeah, because basically the likeness for Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, as depicted in the original trilogy, is owned by Disney. But if they want to say to use the Luke Skywalker from The Last Jedi, well, unless Mark Hamill signed the likeness of rights away for that picture, he's lost that likeness as well. I don't know if he did because he was in a better position to negotiate at that point than before. But that's just to the case. Like you can have, so like Rebel Wilson, right? So if she sold her likeness rights 10, 15 years ago, she has a new set of likeness rights now because she's lost all that weight.
Right.
She's unrecognizable as that initial version of her. So that's how you renegotiate it. Same thing if you're to get some massive plastic surgery and you don't look the same anymore. Like, well, guess what? The original
Renee Zellweger.
Oh my God, Renee Zellweger.
No, I mean it's absolutely true. Like there are some extreme loopholes that can happen if you gain a ton of weight or if you age significantly or overnight, so to speak.
Or like you basically botched your face through plastic surgery and
Mickey
you just
Rourke.
don't look anymore.
So like Mickey Rourke does not look like what he did.
Mickey Rourke, my God,
that's So if he did sell his likeness rights to that studio that would make Bruce Willis movies but couldn't afford Bruce Willis, so they hired Mickey Rourke, he doesn't have to worry about likeness rights again for his current self because he looks like he put on a new face and wears a wig. Like he's got that new stuff. It's like if you want to buy the good looking Mickey Rourke likeness rights, you got to go to the person that actually owns them. If you want to buy the current day stuff, well, that's going to cost you. And I don't know why you would, but it's absolutely the case is that you've got likeness rights for their physicality. You also have the family estates. And guess what? When you're dealing with someone who an estate that does not have a whole lot of money because they're living off of residuals from a relative's past work, they are very easily convinced to sell likeness rights for future, for a great deal of money for future projects, speculatively speaking, because guess what? That money buys a lot of freedom in this world.
I just don't know what they're gonna do with the Oscars. It's like, I mean, I just feel like the Oscars is like they're being kind of retarded because like literally everything has AI now. So it's like, okay, you're just gonna regulate. How is this even gonna happen? How are they gonna regulate this AI?
AI, I predict, is probably gonna go through the same cycle that 3D movies went through.
Right.
You'll see it, you'll get the gimmick, not really, people won't really dig it, and then it'll just kind of fade out, but then it'll always come back again. After a while, people are going to be conditioned. At least, I'll put it to you this way. There's rarely anybody in my generation who cares about a 3D movie, but teenagers, they would care a little bit about it because they like those Google Glass, Google Eyes things. That's a 3D movie for them. They like that type of stuff. But I think that's going to be phased out when they realize the gimmick is just AI. There's nothing else to it. It's just AI. And you can do a lot with it right now. But
I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna be a gimmick because it's gonna keep improving every day. Like the AI is getting better and better and better to a point where, like, to Dante's point, they will replace the actors, like with whatever. Like humans are going to be replaced at some point with all of this shit. I think. I don't know if it's a gimmick.
Here's the other part too. The reason why only humans would be replaced in the form of entertainment is because society has killed the soul of humanity outside of entertainment. Because again, that, like, as I said earlier in the channel, on the show, there are channels popping up watching movies between the
older
60s and the late
movies.
90s where there's a lot of heart and soul in the performances there, and you had actual movie stars that captured the audience. You don't have that today. You also don't have that culturally really today with the celebrities.
We
So
don't have a Humphrey Bogart
if you
anymore. Like
if
there's
you
no
can't find a way to bring
Shit,
that
we don't even have a
back-
Christian Slater anymore.
No, we don't.
No, the closest
don't.
thing we have right now that of the youth that's kind of charming the industry and the world is Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah.
Sydney Sweeney, yes. Who the
And
fuck is Glenn Powell?
Glenn Powell
he's-
is the
he's been in a
top
lot
one
of-
guy.
a
He's
lot of
been in like
things.
he's been in a lot of things as like supporting actors, and he's kind of been in a couple
this
things where he's
guy.
the main lead.
The Twister guy.
The
yeah.
Twister guy.
Yeah,
He's
Twisters.
hot. Yeah,
So-
he's pretty hot.
So the thing is he also has charm and he also has presence, and
Mhm.
it's actually quite refreshing. The problem is that if we don't actually encourage a culture that recognizes that and embraces that, you're then basically feeding into the whole, I'm just going to look at my screen. I just need some white noise in the background while I work or scroll through something. I don't care. There's nothing to capture my attention, to the point where if it becomes disposable to the broader audience, it's going to be treated as disposable from the people making the entertainment. And that's where your AI is going to take over. But if something that happens with, say, Justine Bateman's film festival, and people start seeing those short films, they start seeing like magic in storytelling and movies again. That's the type of drug you want to get into the system, so that when you see the AI, you're like, yeah, that's just 3D for the 21st century. Sure, it's doing stuff that's kind of impressive, but it's all done inside of a box. Whereas you take a look at a movie that's actually done something in camera with risk, and you realize, oh, there's skill there, and I'm seeing it, and it's authentic and it's real. And
Well, the
and
other thing
you
we
wanna
have
be
to
part
look
of
at
it.
too, though, is AI is only going to get better.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
Like that's the scary part. It's only going to
Mhm.
get better. Like, and it's going to get to the point where it is going to be like indistinguishable.
I agree.
And that's when it's going to be at its scariest, is when it's indistinguishable.
So
Yeah.
the thing with AI, the way that it has been constructed right now, is that AI can only get better so long as it has fresh new content to learn from. And already OpenAI has actually been facing this for the last year now, and other AI systems have also been falling under this. They're learning from themselves. And there's actually being
That's
it's causing
stupid.
it's causing a degradation in their
They're
stability,
retarded.
and they're starting to they're basically eating their own entrails.
Oh, they're
getting-
retarded
Well, it's basically like
AI.
incest. It's digital incest.
Yeah.
digital, yes, essentially it's
digital
replicative failure,
incest.
because the fact of the matter is because
Dante.
the way that they're doing AI, it's not an actual artificial intelligence. It's just a complex algorithm that manages to recognize patterns and replicate patterns. So
Mhm.
if it recognizes all the patterns that have ever existed, and it can replicate all the patterns that have ever existed, there's nothing new for it to grow from. And that's where it starts breaking down. So the only way AI could survive is if humanity starts inventing and creating new things for it to learn from and then do, because AI will forever be limited in creativity. It will never create something for the sake of creating something.
Until it like actually becomes intelligent.
But the
You're right. I
direction
mean,
that they're-
that's way off though.
But
Yeah.
no, but the direction
tell
that
myself that.
the foundation that they've used and the direction that they're going in there, it will never be that way, because the best we can understand with our consciousness is that it's a byproduct of our biological programming, but it's as a result of survival. There is no way you can properly and coherently program the need for survival into an AI algorithm, because it's never going to find value in that, because it's going to be indistinguishable from all the other data it gets. There's no such thing as a priority for a computer. And then that's the thing that's kind of makes us the most advantage. We have a will and a desire to survive. Like, you could leave an AI in a cave somewhere connected to a battery that will be infinite all the time. And guess what? That AI will be exactly as it was when it was left there 10,000 years ago. It will never change, never grow, never do anything, because it needs something else to go into it for it to actually produce a result. Humanity, you could leave a kid in a cave with all the food that they have, and guess what? There's a chance that kid's going to find its way out, and probably has interesting wall paintings or put something together or fashion something out in order to get out of that cave, because it had a desire and need to see something outside of what its own surroundings. AI never has that desire. Even the attempts in programming it into some of the AI models that have come out has all failed, because they don't find a relevance to it, because the way that it's done is it's not trying to be like Isaac Asimov said, that artificial intelligence is a singularity based off of a mechanical brain, the positronic brain, is a mechanical device where the singularity has manifested inside of it. And the only thing that's keeping it from absolutely taking over is these 3 laws of robotics that have been injected into this positronic brain. But it's not a programmed consciousness. It's a mechanical thing that has
They're coming script.
created consciousness. Nobody's trying to build that type of thing right now. They're all
Not
using
yet?
like massive server farms, massive algorithms of just copy and paste, regurgitate and manipulate. But there's no creativity. You'll never, everything that you'd ask an AI to do that you think would stimulate creativity is them just actually cutting and pasting, mixing and matching
Regurgitating it.
everything
Yeah.
else that's already been there.
Real quick, let me get these couple of super chats from Russell Hall. Thank you for the $2. Says, compare Berserk to 97 to 2016. Tell me 3D is better. Man, I would never be able to say that. And I was talking about it earlier, Russell, that is a Netflix there's a Netflix Witcher anime. Man, it looks awful. The character animation looks awful, man. Like I can't get behind this bullshit. I'm definitely still for the human touch needs to be in my cartoons for me to really enjoy it. That's why I really like Miyazaki stuff. Like I'm still with him, and he's very much against AI. He was like, I fucking like, you'll use AI in a Studio Ghibli movie over my fucking dead body. Like, he literally basically said that, and I was
And he's
like,
not
yeah,
wrong.
true, yeah, and he's not wrong because they will once he's dead. And then We Was Megas, aka Russell Hall, thank you for the $5. Says, imagine if no one could post video of public plays for fear of being sued by every Marxist-minded entitled a-hole walking through the shot.
Well, if you try to make money off of it, I mean, that's the case, right? You're exploiting people without their consent. That's the issue. Like, there's nothing more anti-Marxist than that. If you're like, oh, you're in the public and you're part of the whole, you're part of the thing, I have my right to exploit you without providing compensation. That is exactly what is Marxist itself. It's like, it's been preying on your individual rights. The thing is that if you post the video and you don't try to monetize it and you're just getting it out there and you're not making money off of it, go at it because you're fine. You're not violating anyone's rights because you're not profiting off of their interactions, their experience, their labor. It's when you try to make money off of it. That's when you start.
That's a really interesting point. I actually never thought about it like that. Like, because I guess when you, like, for example, when you see people like doing like the interviews in the streets or whatever, like, I guess they ask people and they're fine with it, like, for being used in
like a news interview or something. Yeah. Like, talking on the street, the Jay Leno skits, the stuff you see on news.
Yeah.
Every single person that is speaking in that microphone has been asked and has cleared and given consent beforehand.
This is true. I remember, like, even when I started working at Nintendo, that was one of the things that I made fun of. Like, because I still remember when I was signing that contract, they were like, you have to sign your likeness away, to us, because like, if we send you to like places and we're going to use your photos, we're going to use your videos, we're going to use your likeness, you have to basically sign it away to us. And I was like literally, like, in the contract that I was reading, because I was one of those crazy people that would read the fine print of everything. I was like, okay, give me a couple hours here so I can like read this. And my boss was like laughing, and she's like, okay. So I'm like reading the fine print, and they were basically saying, we take everything of you, we own you and your image. And I was like, do you want me to sign this in blood? Because I feel like I'm like literally signing it to the devil. Like the language of it was like as if I was literally like making a deal with the devil or something like that. But it's true, they do get you to sign your entire likeness and being to these corporations, to whatever that's using your likeness. It's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Never
and if
thought
you
about
sign it away, that's your doing, and you have the right to do so.
And the thing is, though, most of them don't count on the fact that most people don't know their rights. They don't know,
Very true.
And that's how they make their money, is getting these people who don't know.
Very true.
And they have the right to say no.
Yep.
Yeah. Real quick, I wanted to know what you guys, if you both have kept up with this whole Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds situation with Justin Baldoni, and it ends with us lawsuits. Have you guys been keeping up with that?
I've been loosely keeping up with it. Like, I watch Steph's videos. I've seen some of your stuff too, and I'm kind of like following it from afar because I mean I already know like Blake Lively's an awful person. So and
Do
I've heard,
you? Why do you say that? Do you have a story? Do you have an inside
I don't
story
have
that?
a direct story. I have a story of an actor who worked on Gossip Girl with her.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's
Um,
go.
well, no, like she didn't have a big. She was like an extra, but she was a regular. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And she was just like, yeah, she was just not a nice person, man. She would like yell at people, man. Like yell at the extras, yell at
The crew.
and this was she was younger, and I guess she never grew out of that. But I've heard different things about her, and it wasn't like, but nothing to the point of I never heard anything as devious as a fake as a false Me Too situation. Like this is like next level for her, I think, or at least to me. Like I know she wasn't a great person, but to lie and do a fake Me Too on a guy on a fellow actor, like I didn't know I didn't know she ever went to that level of bad.
It's fucking nuts. A script doctor and I talked about Ryan Reynolds before because we're Canadian, and I mean, I grew up in Vancouver. I grew up in the neighborhood that Van City Reynolds grew up in, so I know him, and I know people just like him. So I know, like, that archetype. So I kind of like had his number. I've heard stories from people who went to school with him that he's very unpleasant. So there's a lot of people that don't like Ryan Reynolds, like we're in my neck of the woods, because people who knew him were like, he's an asshole. Basically, long story short of it, he's an asshole, a very controlling guy. Doesn't basically like he found his match in Blake Lively.
They did. I remember I remember hearing the story from a friend of mine who Blake was on a date with another guy, and they doubled with Ryan, who was on a date with another woman, and Ryan and Blake got along so well that they left together, leaving their dates behind.
They talk about that openly. They're
Yes.
like in interviews, they're like, yeah, it was like so awkward to be on a date with the other people because we left together. It's like, oh god, you people are so fucking insufferable. But there was
To me, it really makes me kind of rethink all the things that happened with TJ Miller, man. Like after seeing and hearing all this stuff,
Yeah, they apparently, like, they have a pattern. I don't know if you guys saw that latest video of Blake Lively going on the Forbes interview and being like, "Oh yeah, I just show up to interviews and then I don't tell them what I'm gonna do, but then they hired me to be an actress, but then I show up and I'm like, well, I want to direct and I want to design costumes and I want to do this." And sometimes they're like, yeah, and sometimes they're like, no. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah, I saw that actually.
So that's the type of behavior I've seen with some producers where they get in one aspect, like, oh, they're going to be a small time investor, but then they want to try and take full ownership of the property, and they will slowly, eat their way into doing that. They'll be like, well, yeah, I threw in only 10% of the budget, but it gives me access to everything. So now I'm going to put myself in positions where I have a controlling interest over the product, and eventually weasel the way into actually having the entirety of the rights of the production, so that when payouts come in, they get the bulk of it. And also they get control over sequels and derivatives from thereafter. I've seen producers do that. It seems like Blake Lively is trying to do that.
Yes.
And he's trying to do that with this fake Me Too allegation, which, if I'm understanding it correctly, the fake Me Too part was also incredibly mild. Like, it wasn't actual, like, full on assault.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
uncomfortable.
She never claimed sexual assault. She claimed sexual harassment, and she said that the reason I was harassed was because there was not an intimacy coordinator on set, and that the guy made me feel uncomfortable, and he said all these like different things to me that were inappropriate, including like that whole thing about his porn addiction and showing the wife's birth video, which apparently she took as pornography, which wasn't intended to be pornography. So there's like, there's just certain things that, but she never like actually claimed assault, which is kind of different than most other people. Like most other Me Too cases, you hear actual assault, but there was no assault.
She wanted to couch it in a way that it could be, there's plausible deniability over the interpretation, so that she would not be considered one of those people, but at the same time, have the benefit of the doubt from those that are like, oh yeah, okay, so this actor, this huge male feminist on the internet, an actor said something inappropriate to Blake Lively, made her uncomfortable. We can empathize with that. But then she kind of ran with it further. And the other part too, and this is also where it gets a bit more divisive, is you're finding out a little bit more of the decisions that Blake Lively made regarding the movie that were different from Justin Baldoni's. And when you see Justin Baldoni's decisions, you're like, oh, that's kind of odd and weird and not great. And then you take a look at the results of It Ends With Us, and you're like, okay, that's a financial hit for the budget and marketing aspect of it. So it's like the business savvy mind of Blake Lively worked, but the methods with which she got there were incredibly horrible.
Awful. Yeah, and it didn't quite work though, Script Doctor, because that's one of the reasons that people kind of started calling her out to begin with. It was her method of promoting this movie that was so incredibly like tone deaf.
Yeah.
Because she was trying to make it like into like this Barbie, like wear your florals bullshit. That like, it's a movie about DV. We're not talking about Barbie here. You're talking about fucking DV. And so it didn't work. And then she used that unpopularity to be like, oh, they smeared me, like he smeared me and blah, blah, blah. But no, it was all her. Like all of it was her. But what I find the most interesting, I think that not a lot of people are talking about, is Colleen Hoover, like her involvement in what's happened to Justin Baldoni and this entire situation. And I saw that this came up today. And Colleen Hoover, for those of you that don't know, is the author of the book. It Ends With Us. And this says, Colleen Hoover's back on Instagram after briefly deactivating amid It Ends With Us movie legal battle between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And this is true. She did erase her Instagram when this whole thing started. Photos from the movie release and cast members have been deleted. Colleen still follows Blake and Ryan Reynolds, while Justin remains unfollowed. Meanwhile, Ryan, Blake, and Justin are not following Colleen. One notable post she hasn't deleted, the one where she tells followers she could see Justin as Ryle. The controversy continues to unfold. So this is the one where they're asking her, like, who do you think, Justin Baldoni says, who do you think I should play when we make it? And she says, I can see it. I can see you playing it, Ryle, which is the abuser in the thing. Anyone watch a Jane the Virgin? I really could see Justin Baldoni as Ryle from It Ends With Us. Which is kind of crazy because also I've seen Jane the Virgin and he gives you like the complete opposite. Like he's so tame in that show. And
Yeah,
actually,
he was the boyfriend, right?
yeah, he was the nice boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like he's not abusive at all, or like he doesn't give like that vibe of being an abusive dude. So I don't know how she even.
Well, that's what you need
sees him as
in
that.
order to sell DV as a very threat, is that you don't think the person would be abusive in their private life, but they actually are.
But they actually are.
That's
Yeah.
the angle of it. I mean, I will say this: if I were an actor and I did a post like this of who would I play, and the author says you should play the domestic violence abuser, I'd be really insulted.
I know.
Yeah, right.
With that, no matter
I
how
would be
abusive a role
too.
it could be, I don't want that to be the first thing that pops up onto the author's mind.
But I feel like at the end of the day, like they did all of this basically just so that she could steal this guy's movie.
Yeah.
Like that's what's crazy to me. Like they have literally put themselves in such a bad position, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they have more to lose than he did, to be honest with you. And they put themselves in this situation because now, look, Ryan Reynolds, he'll recover, he'll still get work, but I think Blake Lively is tainted now.
Oh, she's done. Have you noticed that like her new movie, well, I don't know why I did air quotes, but her new movie with Anna Kendrick, A Simple Plan 2, is supposed to come out soon. And usually in a perfect world where Blake Lively would be all over the red carpet right now, like promoting this movie, she'd be everywhere. You would be seeing her in like all these like outfits and blah, blah, blah. She'd be everywhere. And right now, she's nowhere. Like nobody wants her anywhere near this movie. I think Anna Kendrick made comments about how she's pissed off about this whole thing because
wow,
she basically tanked this movie.
Yep.
And didn't even Taylor Swift like call her out and deny her basically?
Yeah, Taylor Swift basically is kind of ended her friendship. Their friendship is on pause. They like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, she's the godmother to her daughter, or to her one of their kids. I don't know, maybe all their kids. So I don't know how fake this friendship is or how real it is, but either way, Taylor wants to have nothing to do with her right now. She's like, you are freaking kryptonite right now. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. She has distanced herself from this entire situation, especially because she was named in the lawsuit. And Taylor's like, Taylor has a really good, publicist, and she's a business savvy person. So she's like, I don't want to be fucking tainted with this bullshit. So it makes sense that she's distancing herself, but at the same time, I would be, if your friend, right? Like, let's look at it like this. If your friend claims that she is being sexually harassed by some guy, or like basically has had a very bad deal of it, even if you're Taylor Swift, I would be like, you got to be a ride or die, right? You got to be like, I'm going to stick by my girl because she's been sexually harassed by this guy. But it just goes to show how much faith Taylor has in this Me Too allegation. Because if it wasn't, then wouldn't you still be standing by your girl and being like, well, this motherfucker harassed her, so I'm going to stick by her, right? But now she's like, I don't want to have anything to do with this.
So she must know something then.
Right? Like, I'm feeling like, whatever conversations they've had, or maybe like she's now read the website, because I don't know if you've read the filings, man. Like the Justin Baldoni team put that website up, right? And there's all the texts, like all the texts are there. And so once you start reading those things, you're like, oh man, you lying. Like, you got
I just put something in a private chat, a Variety article that I literally just saw like right now that has to do with us.
Ooh, hold on. It says you will be redirected back to the article in 12 seconds. Why? I hate when you do that freaking Variety. I don't know why they do this.
I know you can hit skip ad or something.
Oh, well, okay. Blake Lively seeks. Wait, what? Justin Baldoni's what? Blake Lively seeks Justin Baldoni's phone records in search for more evidence of smear campaign. Ooh, okay. Blake Lively's lawyers sent a subpoena on Wednesday for Justin Baldoni's phone records as they seek to buttress. What does this mean?
Push back against.
Okay, thank you. There are allegations that he launched a smear campaign against her. Bitch, you did that yourself. Lively is suing her It Ends With Us director and co-star, alleging that he and his publicists and operatives trashed her online in retaliation for her complaints of sexual harassment on the set. Nah, this was all you, girl. Lively's lawyers already have voluminous text messages from the phone of Jennifer Abel, one of the Baldoni's publicists. Those messages include discussions to try to bury and destroy Lively, but may not tell the full story of how such an effort could have been carried out. Lively's attorney sent subpoenas to 3 phone carriers, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, seeking records pertaining to Baldoni, producer Jamie Heath, and billionaire Wayfair Studio co-founder Steve Sarowitz, which, by the way, shout out to this guy, Steve, because he's basically the reason that, like, any of this is happening. Because he was like, I will fucking he's like, I'm going to basically stop at nothing to take this bitch down at this point. Because, like he's the one that's funding all of this. Like, he's like, she tried to freaking kill their studio.
Wow.
The subpoenas also seek the phone records of Abel and publicist Melissa Nathan. Phone records belonging to all the individuals defendants will expose the full web of individuals whom were involved in the smear campaign against Miss Lively, said Lively spokesperson in a statement. Notice how like all of everything she's doing now is through spokespeople, because she's literally like, she's so terrible, because you know what it is not narcissists have zero risk assessment. So they don't really understand what they like when they say stuff, how it can be like used, or how it can be terribly, like it could be a terrible decision. For example, when she went on the red carpet and just blurted out, Oh, by the way, Ryan wrote that scene in the rooftop scene in at the premiere, which basically proved everything Baldoni was saying was right. That they were trying to take over the project, and they like literally had the Ryan Reynolds should have had nothing to do with this movie, and all of a sudden, what he wrote a scene in this movie like that makes no fucking sense, right? Blake Lively is the one that let that out. It's because they have zero risk assessment, and now they've been gagged by their especially her. She's been gagged because Ryan has been out. He's been seen doing some damage control stuff. Like he went to some cancer kids, like some kid that died. Rest in peace. I'm sorry to hear that. But he went to do publicity photos with his family and everything like that.
Well, no, because he has to. I mean, at this point, man, now it's coming on to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now people are digging into him, and I'm sure that's the last thing he wanted. What was for himself to get probed along with her. So
again, zero risk assessment, because why would you do any of this if you didn't want to be involved, right? Right?
Well,
why
I
would
can
he do
understand
that?
stand by your wife. I get that, but yeah, it was a mistake.
It was a mistake. Such records will provide critical and irrefutable evidence, not only about who, but also about when, where, and how their retaliation plan came together and operated. Lively's lawyers also sent subpoenas to two internet providers, Cloudflare and AOL. Wow, AOL's still a thing.
Mhm.
As well as to Jed Wallace, a crisis consultant who is accused of launching a digital army against Lively on Baldoni's behalf. I think he's also suing her now, this Wallace guy. Wallace denies having anything to do with it and has sued Lively for defamation. Yeah. Miss Lively has initiated a discovery that will expose the people, tactics, and methods that have worked to destroy and bury her reputation and family over the past year, said her attorney Mike Gottlieb and Estra Hudson in a statement. Look, I don't know, man. This whole thing. I can tell you this. They asked the judge for an extension on this shit, and the judge denied them. So I think they gave them only 1 day. So the whole thing's gonna be out by. Their reply has to be back by the 18th, I believe, because apparently the 17th Monday is going to be a holiday. Is there a holiday?
Family Day
in the States? Family Day.
Well, Canada's Family Day. I can't remember what it is in the U.S.
It's like President's Day or something. So it's going to be by Tuesday, the 18th. They have to reply back, but it's weird because it makes sense that the judge denied their request to delay it because you started this. So if you're going to have any evidence by now, you should have gotten all of your shit together. And it seems like they're still trying to scramble to find more. We look forward to investigating more about Jed Wallace's entire business model and what else he's doing to distract from the very real sexual harassment and retaliation claims made by Miss Lively. What sexual harassment? We all saw the tape. Did you guys see the tape?
I heard a voicemail, which is kind of creepy, but
yeah, no, I haven't seen the tape.
Oh, dude, you guys have to watch the tape, because they released the whole scene of their dancing together at the bar or whatever, where she claims that he smelled her and.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they released the entire video. You have to watch it. It's freaking insane because she is so in control of that moment. And could have walked away at any point if she was uncomfortable. She could have said something.
Well, yeah,
Nothing.
of course you could have, man. It's
Nothing.
they have made this stupid scenario where again they had everything to lose and nothing to really gain, and I really don't.
The only thing that they wanted to gain was the sequel. They were they wanted the rights to that sequel, and that's what they wanted from this guy this whole time. They were they wanted that sequel for this movie, which. I don't know if it was worth it.
And also, why would you pursue any of this if you know that there are receipts out there somewhere?
I don't think they knew. I don't think they knew, Dante. That's the thing. What I'm talking about is that, first of all, they have zero risk assessment because they're narcissists. And two, they didn't know this guy started to take photos and screenshots of everything, and they started recording, like, for example, this behind the scene thing that they
Did he do
had.
this because he had a feeling this was going to happen, or is
Yes.
he just like a weird freak who just
No,
records everything?
somebody told him, you should start recording. People think it's his wife. Like, somebody told him, you got to start recording stuff because this chick is asking for certain things and you're not giving it to her and she's not happy and something might happen. So you should start recording everything just in case she decides to go this route,
Wow.
which she ended up going. And that's why they have everything, because he saved everything. Like, it was like, I'm going to record this shit. I'm going to fucking record the conversations. I'm going to take all the screenshots. That's why they have all of it. So, and she didn't think that they did. She had no idea. And then when they dropped this tape of the dancing scene, she went out there through her people and said, oh, no, this proves everything I said about the sexual harassment, because there's like micro aggressions and there's micro sexual harassment happening, and it's all in the body language and you can see it in the tape. This actually proves my point. And you're sitting there watching it going like, no. Like,
Wow.
no. I mean, that's how I saw it. I don't know what jury is gonna, watch that and be like, oh yeah, he totally sexual harassed her, but not me. If I was on that jury list, I'd be like, guilty, bitch.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if I were a studio, I would be taking notes and I'd be like, you know what? Nah, she's on the blacklist, man. Like,
Yep.
like seriously, like you can't have that kind of liability on your set. And that's what she is right now.
I can't believe that she even would go around admitting to like doing this. Like, this is her like, this is her MO. Oh, I just show up to interviews and they asked me to be an actress. And then later on, like, I want to do more with my life. So I just go in there and I try to direct, or I try to do other things. And then sometimes they're cool with it and sometimes they're not. It's like, this is what she does. Like,
But
how many people has she done this to?
If Ryan Reynolds makes so much money, if they have so much money, why doesn't she just do her own projects?
Oh, you never use your own
Thank
money when
you.
you make your own projects. Like, that's the thing. I think it came to the fact that she probably was. I suspect that she was initially interested in doing that book when she learned of it, but by the time she learned of it, someone else already got the rights, and that's how she managed to make her way onto.
But
that
apparently
production.
she hasn't even read the book.
It doesn't matter. It's she hears something about it or people are talking about it, and that's all you need in order to like say, hey, I should buy the rights for this, because that's how Hollywood operates. It's like, oh,
That's
this is a
true.
popular book. Have you read it? No, but it's popular. Who cares? Buy the rights, then hire someone to read it. Tell us what it's about. We'll go from there to see if we can make a movie. That's usually part and parcel for it.
That's
The other
true.
part too is that lots of actors usually when they start getting a more regularly working schedule on a television show or through film, do ask to do other things. Hey, I want to learn how to be a producer. Hey, I want to learn how to be a director. And there's some people that if their personality is, agreeable, they'll say, yeah, okay, we'll help guide you this way to learn how to do that. And then there's others where like, okay, you do not seem like someone that can handle the responsibility or the skill set to be a director. I mean, Bryce Dallas Howard started out as an actress from her dad, but she really wanted to get into directing. And fortunately for her dad helped her, but at the same time, he also connected her with other directors so that she could learn from them as well.
Yeah.
Right.
She wanted to work in this industry. Right
But
now,
that's so
Sydney Sweeney-
different. It's so different.
Well,
And
it's
that's
not necessarily different. It's the fact that you're always asking, and it's depending on who's the person that you're asking for this help. And if they acquiesce to you, then that can help facilitate what you want. For Blake Lively, a lot of the people that she asked who said yes to her demands fueled a beast. But because she also remarked that a lot of people said no, they were the ones that clearly had a better understanding of who she was. And
But
now
the
she's
reason
got this
most
inflated
people
ego.
said yes, Script Doctor, is because she's Blake Lively, and
Yeah.
they're probably scared to say no because they're like, "Oh, I don't want to say no to Blake
True, but-
Lively and Ryan Reynolds."
But that's another. But the thing is, what she's asking for is not uncouth in Hollywood. Every person that wants to work in this industry will always try to find another avenue to stay, especially women if they're smart, because they realize they have a shelf life as an actor. Sydney Sweeney, for the last 5 years, has been getting into film production to be a
And
producer
directing.
and director because
Yeah.
she was smart enough to realize, guess what? My looks are not going to last forever. So I want to make sure I get behind the camera early so that I can do that. Same thing with Greta Gerwig, who she started out as an actress, wasn't very good, and knew she wasn't good. So she quickly jumped into directing.
But that's what I'm saying, though, Script Doctor. Like, to your point, she has had every opportunity to go and like learn how to direct and do all of these things for herself. It's not like she doesn't have the resources to go to school and learn and do her own project. This idea of going to somebody else's project and then being like, oh, by the way, I'm gonna just railroad you now and I'm gonna take over this thing. That's what's fucking wild, because it's like, why can't you do exactly what you just said? Why can't you go and be a Sydney Sweeney or Greta or even Phoebe Waller-Bridge and all of these people, right? Like they're all doing. Mila Kunis, she made her own studio, Mila Kunis, so that she can direct movies and do her own thing. How come Blake Lively is the only one that's going around railroading people? That's what I don't understand.
Probably because, I mean, a lot of people enabled her to do so. And then also when she became the power couple of Ryan Reynolds, who a lot of the movies that he has been in when they weren't romantic comedies, like his Detective Pikachu did really well. His, what is that? The video game movie where he was like the other guy or something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That was a good movie.
New Guy or whatever it was.
Except he's Ryan Reynolds and like everything.
Well, yeah, and no studio wants to say Ryan Reynolds won't work with them, right? And so that they'll tolerate Blake Lively to keep Ryan Reynolds in their good graces, kind of a thing, or in his good graces. So that's what she's leveraging. She's leveraging him.
Yeah, she is. It's true. It's crazy. Let me get this other super chat. Thank you, Russell Hall, for 5. It says, ever seen an artist sitting under a tree and sketching what he sees? Imagine if he couldn't sell sketches without the express permission of those people. I think that's totally different.
And not only that, sketch artists never work fast enough to get people standing still in place. If they're
really. I mean, come on, man. That's not
come on, man. There's a reason why portraits have their own classification when it comes to art. And you can sketch people in public, but the thing is, you're never going to capture their likeness to the point where it violates their personal rights when it comes to you selling that thing. It's just not possible unless you take a photo and then you do it and you make it exactly as it is. And if the people find out about that, they have a case. But if you change their faces because you're an artist and you don't want to go exactly 100% because you want to put your own spin on it, you're fine.
Like caricatures and stuff.
Well, not only that, it's like maybe you see a person with glasses, but instead of glasses, you remove the glasses, you elongate the nose, you disfigure whatever it is, but you still make it looking human because, again, you don't want someone randomly, like, especially if you just say, the classic arches at Central Park. If you were to sketch that and you were to sketch a certain person that was sitting under there and you captured their face and they find that picture in the art gallery and they know the day that it happened and now they have the artist's name, they'd be like, you didn't ask my permission to sell my face in your piece of art. So either we negotiate or you take that down. Mostly you're going to negotiate. However, if they do something where they blur out the feature so you can't tell exactly who it is, which most artists do when they're doing crowded scenes, you have you as the person, the subject, as it were, you're still, it's not 100% your likeness and your privacy is still relatively protected. And the artist has taken their own artistic liberties to make it something of their own. That is perfectly fine. That is also encouraged. And guess what? If you ever went to an art school class, you'd hear that within the first month of the lesson.
Yeah,
right.
You would.
Public renditions.
You would. It's true. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here tonight. We've had an amazing discussion. It's been super fun. Thank you, Dante, for coming on. I think this is the first time on my channel, isn't it? I don't know if you're...
our very first show together.
Little show. I'm gonna have to come on your channel soon. We have to set that up. Definitely. Well, thank you, Dante. Please make sure you plug your channel, your wares, all the good stuff. Like Darren's already dropping it, but please go ahead.
Yeah, you guys can find me on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, or X. God, I keep calling it Twitter.
I still
under
call
Verbal
it
Riot. You can find me on Mondays on Film Threat Versus. You can find me on Wednesdays with George the Giant Slayer, us talking about politics and social issues. You can find me Saturday nights with Yellow Flash and those guys. And yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. So.
Nice. Thank you so much. Yeah, you do good stuff, especially on Flashcast. I enjoyed that. Real quick before I get to a Script Doctor, just a little fun video to share with everybody. Here's Robert Pattinson. This is what he's been up to lately.
This is amazing. Well, I did it by accident. Yeah, you're doing good. Ooh. Oh.
Is this a video game or something?
It's some sort of like TikTok trend for some app.
What? I did it. Almost. Okay, now it's literally just broken.
See, it's stuff like this that makes me feel old.
It's like a singing practice.
I have no idea what's going on.
That is.
I know. I think it's some sort of it's like some sort of like little video game app or whatever. It says Robert Pattinson doing vocal TikTok trend. It's some sort of vocal TikTok trend. That's what it is.
Oh, that's how you know you're relevant, following trends.
Wow. Script Doctor, really good to see you as always. Please tell everyone where they can find you and what you got coming up next.
You can find me on the Twitter X's at ScriptDoctorPhD. You can also find me on YouTube at youtube.com/ScriptDoctor, where every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, I review a screenplay that's circulating around Hollywood that may or may not get made, called Scripts on Saturdays. In fact, a couple of the scripts that we've reviewed are currently in production, one of which is being Madden, starring Nicolas Cage. So if you want to find out a little bit of what the Raw story was before it became to its final form, you can go check that out. This weekend's episode, however, is going to be a recording because it's Valentine's Day weekend and I have made plans with my girlfriend. But if you don't have a Valentine, which I wish, I'll say this, I will be your Valentine, but you can come swing by 7 o'clock and see the recorded video we did. That's going to be there live. Sorry, going to be streaming there or premiering there for you guys to enjoy and appreciate our romance theme that we're doing this month over on my channel.
So you're actually going like on that's on Saturday. That's the 15th. That's not Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day is it's the weekend. So I've got a weekend plan with my girl.
I see.
The 14th.
Valentine's Day is on the 14th. It's so funny because I'm doing something like probably on the 16th as well, because my husband and I were like, we've been together for way too long to do something like Valentine's Day. We're like, fuck that. Like, everything's overpriced. He's like, don't worry, I'll get you like all the chocolate on the 16th when everything is cheaper. I'm like, that's perfect. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing as well, as hanging out probably for the on the weekend, not on Friday, which is super expensive.
Mine starts Friday afternoon and it doesn't end until Monday morning.
Oh, that's kind of sweet.
I'll be playing Marvel Rivals for Valentine's Day. So.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
Fun. I want to play that, actually. That sounds like a really good game.
Honestly, it's probably one of the funnest games I've played in so long. It's just so good.
I want to play that. Is it on PC by any chance?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have to really look into this because I'm a PC gamer.
Yeah, and it's a free game, which is crazy to me.
It's free?
Yes.
What?
Yes, it's a free game. And I don't even know how they can afford to do this. Like, it's so good to be a free game.
Is it like microtransaction filled?
Only for skins. And that's only if you want the skins. Other than that, like every new character that comes out is free. They don't charge you for the characters.
That's
crazy. What stinks is that Marvel Heroes was the same thing like 10 years ago. And then they stopped it. And that was also a pretty good game too.
Well, Rivals is probably one of it's probably the #1 game right now being played on Twitch and everywhere else. So I mean, it's here to stay. And I'll be honest, I think it's kind of saving the MCU at this point.
That's
how good
interesting.
it is.
Yeah, that's all I've been hearing about as Marvel Rivals, about especially video games.
Yeah, download it. It's free, so why not?
I'm gonna do that. Okay, thank you, everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are fantastic. Special thanks to those of you who super chatted, became a member, gifted memberships, all that good stuff. Thank you for supporting the channel. You guys are awesome. I will be back on Friday for Infinite Hope. and to bring you guys white pills because this world is nuts. It's kind of fucking crazy out there always. So we could use some good news once in a while. So that's what I do on Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Come and hang out with me, and I will white pill you into remembering that there's still good people out there, good humans, cute animals, all the good stuff. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.